Good evening and welcome to the August 7, 2023 Granville County Board of Commissioners meeting. I'd like to start with Commissioner Tony Cozart, who will lead us in our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will you please bow with me? Our Father, which art in heaven, we want to thank you first of all for the beauty of another day. And then, God, we thank you for the multitude of your blessings, for all of your loving kindness and your tender mercies. We ask your guidance, God, on this night as a board, that you be with us, that you be with Commissioner Willowfoot, Commissioner Jay, and grant them with safety in their travels. And God, for those of us here tonight to do business on your behalf, we ask, as Solomon did, that you would grant us with wisdom so that we will know to do the things that you'd have us to do. We plan to glorify you through our service on this night, so help us to that end. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, you have before you the consent agenda. There's one item on the consent agenda which I'd like to make note of. It's number 8, page 50, number 8 on minutes, page 194. I worked with the clerk today to amend that to read 1.87 million, not 7.8 million, and that's been corrected. With that, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have an addition in the appointments. I didn't get back to Deborah last week when we were putting the agenda together around the economic development vacancy that I've got. I understand we have received an application, and I'm prepared to appoint that individual, if we could add that.
Okay. And clerk, if you would just remind me as we go through, we get to the final number, we will add that under appointments. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move that we accept the agenda.
Commissioner Karan, motion?
Second motion.
Second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, this board would like to take a moment of reflection to remember former Commissioner Ernie Anderson, who passed away on July 21st, 2003. He was appointed as a county commissioner on September 8, 2020, and sworn in on September 16, 2020, to fill the vacancy due to the death of Commissioner Owen Roberts. He served until December 7, 2020. Ernie was a wonderful man. Pleasure to call him friend. Many people in here know Ernie. He was also a city commissioner for the city of Creedmoor. I asked someone last night what's most notable about Ernie and what they remembered most about him. And they said it was his love for others and his willingness to serve. And so in the passing of Mr. Anderson, I'd like to take a moment for us to reflect upon his life and God's grace upon his life and remember him in a moment of silence, if you would. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Dennis Lester, if you would, excuse me? Yeah, we've already done the consent. Are we good with the consent, Madam Clerk? And we're now moving on to recognitions. Are we good?
Do we need to vote? We need to vote.
Oh, we did not vote on the consent agenda? I think we
did. Go ahead.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Lester, if you would, come forward. idea that was going to happen in life. To know him is a privilege. He's a wonderful man. He's done a lot for our community in Granville County. And he suffered a great loss recently as well. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to recognize him for all that he's done for our county, the children of our county. He's a good and godly man, someone that has mentored many people. There's family members here, good friends here, former coaches here. He's touched hundreds of lives. I'd like to read this to you, Dennis, if you don't mind, and thank you for standing. Whereas Dennis Lester, graduate from South Granville High School in 1966 and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 1970, majored in health and physical education. Meanwhile, his beloved wife, Raina, also graduated from South Granville High School and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 1970. Whereas the Lesters are known to be legendary for their love of support, teaching, and mentoring of literally hundreds of students who passed through the hall and played on their fields of greens and courts of South Granville High School. Dennis and Raina were married 52 years and have 2 children. Cecily, thank you, I did my best, and Neil. Recently, Raina passed away, and this has left a void in that family that will never be filled. Whereas Dennis began teaching in 1970, his tenure with the Granville County Public School System began in 1974. He taught physical education for both Greenways Elementary and Holly Middle Schools before accepting the coaching position at South Granville High School. Whereas Dennis was an outstanding coach and achieved great success. His baseball teams won 4 conference championships, the 1982 regional championship, and were regional state runner-ups. 3 of his players went on to play professional baseball. One of them was Jeff Johnson, who played with the New York Yankees and Cleveland Guardians. Whereas Dennis wore many coaching and teaching hats while at South Granville High School. This included, was not limited to, coaching football, basketball, baseball, and teaching driver education. Whereas Dennis made he coached success, his character, and his lasting impression from South Granville High School, he was inducted into South Granville High School Hall of Fame class of 2017. Whereas Dennis retired from Granville County Public Schools in 1999. Did we get that right? Okay. Okay, just barely missed it. However, that's a teacher in you, don't get it. We'll put a red mark on that. We'll make those changes. However, his public service was not complete. He served in the Creedmoor Planning Board for 15 years. Dennis's faith, love of family, cornerstone of community is second to none. Spark. It's a good name. Dennis exemplified, then and now, all the honest value of character that you would not relation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Granville County Board of Commissioners acknowledges Dennis Lester's many years of dedicated service to the children of our great county, the city of Greenways, and to all those touched by his desire to help others reach their goals. Today, there are many former players and students who will testify that many of the successes are the result of Coach Lester's impact in their lives. Congratulations.
Sign in the back.
Thank you. Now, if I could have Coach Earl come up here.
Who is that guy?
You know who I am.
You know who I am.
Coach Moore here, any other coaches, and players?
Yes, that's more players.
Come on up here, coaches and players, to coach with Dennis.
Principal, so, yeah, that's all we need, just.
Hey, well,
Okay, if you guys will line up here, let's put the coach in the middle. Get the middle of your coach. Come on, sir. Former president.
I think Jimmy looked good. I'll say it. Like that.
Okay.
Sheila, will you take another, Sheila, will you take another picture?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. This is the principal that had to fill in for me for the first time I got thrown out of the game.
You know what they say, they don't tell it all. We lost.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Move on down, please. Thank you.
It's all right. Yeah, those things mean a lot. Yes, sir. Glad some of these former players will be here. Those relationships in that situation. You had a
I don't have anything wrong. Things kicked me out. Quick focus on the roof.
We want to thank the Lester family for coming tonight, the opportunity to present that to him. We are blessed with a lot of people like Dennis Lester in Granville County, and he is truly an icon, and my privilege to speak on a close friend like that. Next item is public comments. We have a lot of speakers tonight. We would like to give everyone the opportunity to speak. However, by doing so, we're going to reduce the time limit to 2 minutes per person. We have over 27 people to speak. So the board has agreed to let everyone speak, but at a reduced time. If you like to speak longer, you may share your time with someone else that's already signed up. That being said, we'd ask that you abide by the decorum, be polite and courteous, do not make any personal attacks, present information along those lines, and please do your very best not to distract or disturb the board. With that being said, the first speaker, any further comments, board? With that, Mr. Paul Blaylock, if you could provide us your name and your address.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Paul Blaylock, 1593 Tally Ho Road. I found out about the STEM ETJ in early March, and as y'all know, starting in March, I've been before y'all at every meeting that y'all had, stating my opposition to it. I know that there's a lot of people here to speak tonight, so I won't hog a lot of time. And I won't even go into a lot of reasons. I've sent y'all bunches of emails, and I've spoke before you, and I'd just like to say that I'm absolutely against the STEM ETJ and ask that you vote no for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cynthia Griffin.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cynthia Griffin, and I am at 1641 Tally Ho Road in Oxford. I'm here to voice my opposition to the STEM ETJ once again. I've done that many times. I will not go over my many reasons for the sake of time. I'll just give you the most important two. The most important one to me is that the town of STEM would take over basically our property rights, basically with determining how we are zoned, et cetera, but we have no ability to vote in the town of STEM. I'm a huge believer in property rights, civil liberties, et cetera. I don't believe this is fair, and I don't believe it's the American way. It does not support property owner rights, whereas if we remain under the county authority, we retain those rights, and we have the ability to vote and say how we're governed. An appointed position that is a non-voting position on a planning committee is no substitute for the removal of those rights, in my opinion. The second reason that I have is more of a recent timely nature, and that is with State Bill 675 pending before the North Carolina legislature. My opinion is that it would be inappropriate to approve this request at this time while that legislation is still pending. In closing, I would like to say I do really appreciate the many opportunities the county commissioners have allowed us to come in for these many months and speak to you and you listen to us. And with that in mind, we would like to respectfully request tonight that you vote no to the STEM Town's request for an ETJ. Thank you.
Ms. Griffin, thank you. Ingrid Darius. If I mispronounce your name, please correct it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ingrid Darius, 3226 Tump Wilkins Road, and I beg you please that I oppose the ETJ, and by God and with your help to clinch it right now and not vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dorothy Boyd.
I'm Dorothy Boyd, and I live at 3595 Deerfield Road in STEM, North Carolina, and I ask that you vote no, because I feel it's unfair to people in the community to not be able to vote for something that they can be pulled into.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Is that all?
No, just vote no.
Thank you. One moment, please. Okay. Let me get 15 minutes in. Okay. Timothy Kitts.
My name is Timothy Kitts. I reside at 4053 Maple Lane, and I'm here in opposition to the STEM ETJ. This sign reflects my total sentiment, and I respectfully ask that you vote no for it. If you can't vote no, at least postpone it. This has been a rush from the get-go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Michael Boyd.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, council members and everyone. About a week and a half ago,
Name and address.
Michael Boyd, 1673 Stony Rock Road, STEM. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I went to Washington, D.C. I stood in the presence of the Declaration of Independence. I stood in the presence of the Constitution. I drove to Philadelphia with my wife and kid, went to Independence Hall, stood there where one of our own, John Penn, from Granville County, signed the Declaration of Independence with the chance of being hanged by England. If he would have known what he knew now, he probably would have never signed that and would have just kept going along. 247 years later, an elected body by the town of STEM, mayor, and so on and so forth. To my knowledge, only one of them is from Granville County originally, to my knowledge. They were elected with 31 votes, 32 votes, and 35 votes were 3 of them at the last election. So you're saying that 35 people in town limits that have, most of them, with all due respect, not any idea of how to run a farm or large property or any of the such, to take over thousands of acres of representation and let 35 people basically run things like that. There was and I'm sure some of you know this, a majority quote from a famous lawyer, James Otis, from 1764. I'm going to change one thing. He said, "The very act of oversight and rule exercised over those who are not represented appears to me to be depriving them of the most essential rights as free men, and if continued, seem to be the effect of an entire disenfranchisement of every civil right." You on this very board pledge allegiance to the flag.
Time, sir.
Is that it?
That's your time.
Thank you.
Who is giving the time up? Who?
Thank you. On this very board, you recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and you say a prayer before each of these meetings. I've been to 2 of your meetings like this, and I commend that. As all of you know, I've sent an email to you guys, or emailed letter to you guys, in which, in just simple terms, I don't think that every inch and every piece of this legislation or letting them enact the ETJ over STEM is actually lawful. You know, you got guys smarter than me that can probably tell me otherwise. However, just like a true and false test in school, if every single part of the statement is not true, it must be false. Right? It's no different from this law. And I've also got some things that I did not send to you that are on the STEM website, both maps and their projection of how many people, even by 2040, they can have, that would dispute the legality of this. And once again, I want to thank you at the beginning of your meeting for having a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. The Lord clearly states in His Word that the second greatest command is to love your neighbor as yourself. If you pass STEM's ETJ proposal, what are you saying to your neighbor? And how hypocritical would it be to go against your neighbor and assist the town of STEM in complete covetousness of others' property? Call it what you want to. And that leads down a rabbit hole of all other problems. So if you pass this, you're not only breaking the law in just a layman's thoughts, but you should also question your commitment to the oaths you took in this very chamber and your commitment to the religious ideals that you claim. And I trust you'll do right by the will of the people, and I thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Going forward, no applause until the last speaker, please. Thank you very much. For those that don't understand why I do that, is that this is a business meeting, and we have a lot of material to cover, and we'll make sure we get it all covered this evening if it takes us to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. But we will guarantee you that we'll be respectful to you if it's reciprocated. Mark Griffith.
Good evening. My name is Mark Griffin, and I've lived for 62 years at 1629 Tally Ho Road, Oxford, North Carolina, where I've raised my family of 5 children, lived and served my community and my state and my government for 37 years. And when I now retire and want to live out my days, and I farm a little bit and raise a few vegetables to sell. I want to thank you for allowing me to have time to speak tonight. And this is a very personal issue. And while I don't take it personal, it is personal to me. A lot of men and women have fought for the rights that we show today. And I want you to take a minute to think about that those people gave their lives willingly so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we have in this country. At Pledge of Allegiance, we stated at the earliest part of this meeting, said in justice for all. And that's what I would like for you to consider. Please don't let the will of 5 or 6 people that are in the leadership of STEM undo the will of all these other people that have been here. Throughout every meeting I have been to, I've not heard one person, not one, say they were in favor of this project. I don't know what this project has that will benefit me or any of my neighbors. So I implore you tonight to please do the right thing by all of these people that are in this room tonight that have spent their time, blood, sweat, tears, and money to come out and voice opposition to this project. Again, thank you for your consideration, and I hope and pray that God will lead you in a decision that will benefit the majority of the people involved in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mark Tilley. To Sherry?
Eric.
Eric, okay. Eric Miller.
Good evening. My name is Eric Miller. I live at 2029 Carewoods Drive outside of STEM. Not far enough outside, apparently. So, you know, a few months ago, I got a blurry little map on a notebook, piece of notebook paper in the mail with a letter saying that the town of STEM was seeking land use authority over my property. And in the months since, I've tried to figure out what impact this would have on me and my neighbors, and I've been unable to do that. I've been unable to get clear, concise, written answers to our concerns about this project. How many people here oppose this? How many of you feel like you understand it? I mean, we should talk. I don't understand it, and neither do my neighbors, and we're alarmed and we're upset by the town's obdurate refusal to talk to us about it. Not to contradict themselves, not to change the map or the document on a whim. So we have formed something called STAN, the STEM Area Neighborhood Defense, and we have legal counsel. We've retained Calhoun, Bella, and Sechrist of Durham. They're well known in the property, land use, and environmental issues arena. We've only been working on this since late last week, but they have pointed out that right now, if you vote yes on this, you're voting on, you don't even know what you're voting on. You can't show us a document with every property by parcel with property owner's name that is included in this and the ones that are excluded. It doesn't exist. And that's only one of numerous ways that we believe the town of STEM has failed to meet the statute that governs application for an ETJ. If they can't apply for one competently, how can they manage one? So I'm opposed, like everyone else here, and our attorneys thought that, you know, we should point out to you that failure to provide sufficient detail on the ordinance is grounds for having the ordinance nullified. If it does pass, we're going to be in your dreams every night, because we're going to fight this every parcel, every day, legally in court, and we're going to get it thrown out. Thank you.
Caitlin Selgren.
About 15 minutes in, but that's that one coming back and forth.
Okay.
So we'll do it 15 minutes.
Caitlin Selgren, 1098 Lake Ridge Drive, and I prepared an exactly 3-minute speech, so I will do my best to get through this as quickly as possible. In anticipation of the board's impending vote on several matters...
Can you hold on 1 second,
Yes.
please? I just want to check our time and see what we can do.
Thank you. What she said, somebody's telling
Okay, all right, go ahead. Thank you.
In anticipation of the board's impending vote on several matters that will ultimately have an indelible consequences for everyone that is in attendance tonight, I would like to take a moment to remind us all of the intent of a democratic government. The Founding Fathers tell us through the Declaration of Independence that governments should be instituted among men who have derived their just powers from the consent of the governed. In modern terms, this means there is a presumed right of the people to instruct their elected officials. Tonight, I stand before a board that prays to God before each meeting, asking Him to help them make the right decisions, while forgetting their obligation is to make the decision that represents the opinions, ideas, and concerns of the citizens that they represent, not the right decision as determined by their personal bias. As a result, the board cannot effectively govern without hearing the opinions, ideas, and concerns of the citizens. When we do show up, we are limited to 3 minutes and 10 people. Tonight, the board has graciously extended that. However, the board can hardly get the pulse of the community in this limited time, yet no other forums are offered, and it would be a benefit to all to have regular, informal forums with dialogue so that the citizens can speak on all issues, not just the 1 or 2 they had to triage down to. The Constitution also tells us all men should be created equal. Unfortunately, that wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. Tonight, I stand before a board that has compared itself to God and spoken down to its citizens, calling them things like the peanut gallery and sphincters, words and phrases that clearly show our equality. A conversation between citizens and the government at a table where all are treated as equal is what is desperately needed. The Constitution also tells us we have an unalienable right, in particular to the pursuit of happiness. The citizens of this county have spoken time and again on how rural life is what makes them happy. Just about every decision this board has made in the last several years has been in opposition and contrary to the pursuit of the happiness of its citizens. It is time the commissioners acknowledge our rural way of life is valuable, possibly more valuable than the overcrowded city many of us have left. It is time to set...
Your time, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. You've already spoken, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Your name? Did you get a name? Continue, ma'am.
It is time to set the standard on the value of rural life. Let's make Granville County the perfect weekend getaway from the city. Commissioners, I ask that you tonight consider the origins of our government and the Constitution, as well as the will and happiness of your citizens when you make your votes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tim Hotsford?
Hi, my name's Tim Hosford. I live at 1582 Easy Street, and I strongly oppose the STEM ETJ, and I hope y'all will vote no on it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Cheryl Bloust? You can correct me, ma'am.
My name is Cheryl Blausch. I live at 3109 Tump Wilkins Road, and I have spoken to you before. I have sent out information and reached out. I am opposed to the STEM ETJ. please vote no.
Thank you, ma'am. Krista Burton.
Hi, my name is Krista Burton. I live at 3611 Crosswinds Drive in STEM. I have lived there for 23 years. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of my mom, Cookie Reynolds, who is also here with me, and my husband, Donald Burton, who couldn't be here. And we are opposed to the ETJ as well and ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Cookie Reynolds.
She spoke for her and she said she'd donate her time if somebody else needs it.
Okay. Christy Campbell.
I'm Christy Wilkins Campbell, 3108 Tom Wilkins Road in STEM. Okay. You have heard us speak for many months that we are opposed to the ETJ and why we are against it and how it would affect us. I'm wearing a bracelet, and on the bracelet says American Heritage. It's got a tobacco leaf on it. I come from a tobacco family. We raise tobacco for a living. That was our family heritage. The tobacco was raised on the land that I live on now. That is the reason I'm fighting this, for family heritage. My children's heritage, my grandchildren's heritage, and the heritage of the ones that are no longer with us. We have been accused of spreading misinformation many times. This book is where the misinformation came from. We have quoted the book. The town of STEM has been vague, inconsistent, and incomplete with the information they have presented. We ask that you delay the decision on the ETJ until STEM answers our serious concerns and complies with the North Carolina laws on ETJs. And I have the petition with a couple hundred plus signatures that I presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Tim Caroline? Carolyn?
Tim Carolyn, 3145 Tump Wilkins Road. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my fiance, Michaela Wilkins, and her family. We live in STEM, and we implore you to vote no on the ETJ. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lori Sproul?
Hi, I'm Lori Sproul. I live at 1695 Mineral Springs Road. And I just wanted to say again that me and my family are totally against the ETJ. And I hope that y'all all will listen to us and follow your heart and really think about what y'all going to be voting on. And I pray that y'all will vote no against it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. David Carey.
My name is David Carey. I live at 2030 Carewoods Drive in STEM. I'm opposed to the STEM ETJ. I believe it is an injustice to the unincorporated property owners in the county. There's there's regulations on, we cannot vote for those that impose those regulations on us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Tish Thompson?
Tish Thompson, 1183 Little Mountain Road, STEM. We were informed with the first meeting back in March. The one thing that stuck out to me when we were at the fire department for that first meeting was a commissioner said that there were about 20 more people at the STEM firehouse concerned about this letter we received in the mail than usually come to these meetings. Is the proof in the pudding here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you know who you were when you said it.
I did.
Jamie, Serenity Road address. Yes, sir. Spell your name when you, is it H-A-R-R?
H-A-R-R.
H-A-R-R.
I live at 3213 Serenity Drive. I'm opposed to STEM ETJ. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Julie Frond?
Hi, my name is Julie Frund. I live at 3257 Tump Wilkins Road. And I just want to say that I'm opposed to the ETJ because it is regulation without representation. I know there is an appointed representative, but to be able to cherry pick a representative is not true representation. And I ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. J.C., 1174 Smith Creek.
Hi, J.C. Georgiev, 1174 Smith Creek. Thanks for announcing that for me. I just wanted to
Your address,
update.
please. Address.
1174 Smith Creek.
I know I said it, but
Okay.
thank you.
So did I. All right, so I wanted to just update you on the South Granville petition, the sixth part, for restoring the 1 acre minimum lot, banning community wells, building a moratorium, adoption of well interference, no use of explosives, and equitable fire tax. So we have gone from the last meeting of 100 signatures, we have approaching 300 signatures with about 4 more neighborhoods that are actively getting signatures as well. So this is definitely growing, and I think there's a common theme that's happening here, and so I would just ask, I also spoke with our state legislature to find out from last month's meeting. The mayor had mentioned that the people were lying. It turns out that in an ETJ, it actually depends on who's the mayor as to if chickens are allowed or if roads are paved. It really is dependent on getting an ordinance and a jurisdiction so that they have a say. And that really goes for any future ETJs off of Creedmoor or anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope you'll stay for the whole meeting. I think we'll have several items on the agenda that you're interested in.
I'm really hoping maybe it won't be at the final 30 seconds
Betsy
of the meeting.
Noble. What did she say?
It'll be in the last 30 minutes. I'm second last.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Betsy Noble.
Hi, I'm Betsy Noble. I live at 1295 Woodland Church Road, Wake Forest address. I'm here on behalf of my neighborhood, New Forest. I have several neighbors here tonight. We're worried about our wells, but we're in support of the petition that she just spoke about, and we just hope that you understand that there needs to be a new groundwater survey, and there needs to be, we need to slow down the growth before the, to get the infrastructure in place first, before we have an explosion of neighborhoods. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Barbara Meadows.
Hello and thank you. My name is Barbara Meadows. I live at 3178 Serenity Drive in Stem, North Carolina, and I do not want this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Shannon Fleming.
Shannon Fleming, 1991, Idlewood Drive, STEM, and I have spoken before you as a resident of STEM against the ETJ. Today I stand before you as the chair of the Democratic Party of Granville County.
So your comments, we don't allow political or campaign comments, or you're making comments on your behalf, or are these the comments representing the Democratic Party?
On my behalf.
Okay, thank you. I want to clarify that. So there's no need to address your party. Our decisions we make here are nonpartisan.
I am reading the Democratic Party values.
Thank you, ma'am.
In the Democratic Party values, on the 5th page, it says, ETJs, as Democrats, we believe that ETJs can be an undemocratic tool used by municipalities as a part of their zoning and planning jurisdiction. Residents who live in ETJs are subjugated to municipality planning and zoning regulations, but do not have a say in the governance of their municipality. We believe that local government should consider approaching citizens for annexation or implementing a joint planning area shared between a municipality and a county to ensure that the residents who live there in these areas have a democratic means to resolve concerns related to zoning and planning. My understanding is that Mayor Dover has had voluntary discussions with people for annexation, so he understands how to work this process without utilizing an ETJ. So he knows how to do this without forcing people under these regulations and restrictions without representation. I've spoken before about how ETJs, all ETJs, not just the SIM one, is coming up before the county, and you face the same decisions over and over again about how they are regulation without representation. The Democratic Party has values, and we now need to we see where Dover stands, but we have to see where yours do.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Is there anyone else that's not listed that would like to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Baker. Me and my wife live at 1171 Little Mountain Road in Stem. First, we want to thank our county commissioners. I don't think you guys need to be beat up. I do think that you need to hear the people. We voted you in office for a reason. That is for the people. And in God we trust, and we also trust in you. And we are against this EJT.
Thank you, sir. Any others? You may step up, sir.
So sorry about not being on the agenda. My name is Mark Kwasnick, and I live in Granville County.
Can you speak up, please, sir?
My name is Mark Kwasnick. I live in Granville County. Specifically, my address is 3641 Pine Needles Drive, Wake Forest. And sorry I wasn't on the agenda, but I just kind of wanted to say that along the lines of the petition for the Falls watershed, I think that the Falls watershed is really a great place to live in Granville County, to be honest with you. I moved there back in 2013 out of Wake Forest and Raleigh. And I think part of the reason why it's a great place to live is because of how it's been developed. And that's really what drew me to it in the first place, which was you've got large lots, like 1 acre size. They have private wells. There's a lack of commercial development. And it's a very natural place. And I just wanted to state my concern that if we start bringing in, more industrial measures, like community wells and packing more houses into smaller areas, I think we fundamentally run the risk of making it not only a worse area to live, and I would encourage all of you to drive down Bruce Garner Road, which is a 2-lane highway, and that's the only access for all of these new neighborhoods. But I think we run the risk of depleting the resources that we need to live there, namely water. And that's all.
Can you spell your last name for the clerk, please?
Kwasnick.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Am I missing anybody? Oh, County Attorney, am I missing anybody? I'm not seeing left or right. Okay. That'll be the end of the close of public comments. Thank you for bearing with me. At this time, I'm requesting representatives of the town of STEM to introduce themselves to our board, and I'm welcome to present our board your request for an ETJ. Mary Dover provided our board a letter of transmittal on or about July 26, 2023, noting an enclosed resolution of the town of STEM Board of Commissioners unanimously adopted on July 17, 2023, requesting pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160D 202C, the Granville County Board of Commissioners requesting the Granville County Board of Commissioners to approve an extraterritorial jurisdiction. The background of this is North Carolina state statute provides guidelines for the creation of municipal extraterritorial jurisdictions in areas or situations where ETJs are allowed, but where the county zoning and subdivision regulations already apply to municipality. After following all the other rules associated with the creation of an ETJ, must request the County Board of County Commissioners to approve the transition of an area in question for county zoning jurisdiction to municipal zoning jurisdiction. To our knowledge, the procedural requirements have been met by the town of STEM for their proposed creation of an ETJ area, and the item is thus being brought forward for consideration. The town of STEM officials will be available to answer questions. Mayor Dover.
Thank you for having me this evening. The town of STEM is here this evening seeking Granville County's approval to establish an extraterritorial jurisdiction 1 mile from her corporate limits as granted by the NC General Statute 160D-202. As we look to the future and envision the continued progress of STEM, it becomes evident that establishing an extraterritorial jurisdiction for our town is a crucial step in ensuring our community's interests are safeguarded. An ETJ empowers us with the authority to manage and regulate development, zoning activities within a designated area surrounding our town's boundaries. This means that we can actively participate in shaping the growth that occurs in our vicinity, protecting our environment, and maintaining the character that makes STEM such a wonderful place to live. By establishing the ETJ, we gain the ability to, 1, plan thoughtfully. We can create comprehensive land use plans that align with our vision for STEM's future. They will help us avoid haphazard development and ensure that new projects are integrated seamlessly into our existing infrastructure. Preserve our identity. As we continue to grow, it is crucial that we maintain the essence of STEM that makes us unique. Through the ETJ, we can implement regulations that encourage development while preserving our small town charm and community values. Protect our environment. The establishment of an ETJ allows us to manage issues related to water quality, open spaces, and natural resources. We can take measures to ensure sustainable growth that minimizes environmental impact. 4, enhance the quality of life. By having a say in the development outside our town limits, we can advocate for amenities, services, and infrastructures that benefit not only our residents, but those in our surrounding areas. Community engagement. An ETJ provides us with a platform to engage with neighboring municipalities and stakeholders. This collaborative approach can lead to mutual beneficial agreements and shared visions of growth. In conclusion, the establishment of an extraterritorial jurisdiction for STEM North Carolina is a step towards securing our town's future and shaping its growth in a way that aligns with our values and aspirations. It gives us the power to influence our community to how our community evolves, ensuring that it remains in a vibrant, welcoming, and sustainable place for generations to come. I urge all of you to consider the significance of this proposal and join me in supporting the creation of an ETJ for STEM. Together we can pave the way for a brighter, more prosperous future that respects our heritage while embracing progress. With that, I'm going to add a couple more comments. The town of STEM is a part-time municipality, 5 commissioners, a mayor, a town clerk, a zoning administrator, and 4 police officers. We're self-sufficient. We're asking for this to continue to be self-sufficient, not to have to depend on the county for these things. I understand it's a heated topic. Our planning board, which is made up of 6 volunteers in our community, put a plan forth. They started in 2018 and brought forth and was adopted by the town of STEM in 2020. The beginning of that, this extraterritorial jurisdiction was laid out by the planning board, not by the board of commissioners. It was a recommendation from the planning board, working with other planners to put forth a plan that would protect STEM in the future. This is not about today, it's about tomorrow. I'm very proud of the work that the planning board has done. They worked very hard on the UDO. It took them 2 years to get the UDO done to make sure. That has replaced the outdated zoning legislation, or zoning copy you had earlier. With that, I thank you guys for hearing us tonight, and I'll answer any questions you have, or other commissioners will as well, or Mr. Hornick.
Board members, any questions? Commissioner Hinman.
Yes, sir, I have some questions.
Yes,
Mayor Dover, you know I adore you. And
Oh, I know. Understood.
And this has nothing to do with that. What is the benefit of the town of STEM to pass this ETJ?
So for the town of STEM, for us, what's important is to preserve our southern border, to keep encroachment from the neighboring municipalities. There again, it's not today, it's in the future, right? We've had multiple requests to annex into the neighboring municipality, and we of course politely declined. When we started proposing the ETJ, we were asked to admit a certain parcel of land at 85, right? So we understand that they would love to come across into STEM. For us, we also, what's important is on the backside of the Mangum Road, which for us is important, is the backside of Tar River. We want to preserve that. Should it ever develop, and when it does develop, have some control on that so that we can maintain Ledge Rock Creek. That's a gem within southern Granville County into the town of STEM. The UDO provides, if he ever develops, trailheads, parking pads for people to enjoy that natural beauty that's rolled through Ledge Rock Creek, which is absolutely amazing. For us, that's the biggest thing, is to control that growth so we don't have unbridled growth.
Okay. What is the benefit of the people who live in the area of the ETJ for this ETJ?
So in my opinion, and for this plan, there's restricted growth, right? If a developer wants to come, instead of having 4 houses, we only allow 2. We have much more restrictive growth. We want to control that.
Okay.
And of course, your farms and those things would be, because they're not considered part of zoning, they would not be part of this, right?
When was the current UDO passed?
I think we passed it in the first one, correct? When did we pass it, Bob? 2022, ma'am.
2022.
I'm sorry, COVID kind of made things go a little crazy.
Okay.
May of this year, to add the agricultural zoning district.
Okay, my next question was, when was the UDO changed last? That just answered that question. What does it take to change the UDO? How can it be changed tomorrow again?
So, yes, ma'am. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to back up real quick. So the folks know the reason the agricultural exemption was left from that is when they passed the original UDO, the town of STEM, the planning board, here again, is a volunteer organization, used the land use, I think you call it the land use map for Granville County that was passed in 2018. Looking at that map, they have the surrounding areas outside of STEM listed as R1 for residential. So our board just mirrored what was on the Granville County things. They omitted the actual existing, it was AR40. Once it was brought to the attention through the public informational sessions that we had prior to the public hearing, the zoning board came back and added the AR40, mirrored exactly to the county, minus some biodiesel creation segments are in there, to make it equal, so there would be no change That was passed in May 24. To have that, what has to happen is you have a public hearing. For us, turned out to be a 30-minute hearing, turned to be almost an hour, a little over an hour, which was more discussions about the ETJ in the process.
Right. And will the people in the ETJ have the right to vote for an elected officials in the town?
No, ma'am, the statute does not allow for that. It is a person that's appointed by this board.
Thank you. My next questions are for Mr. Barry Baker. Mr. Barry Baker, would you approach the mic, please?
Yeah, you wait, Mr. Baker. You're good, Bob.
My major question for you, sir, is does an ETJ stop another city or town from annexing this area that the ETJ is part of?
No, ma'am, it does not.
And also, the other question for you is these people in the ETJ, will they have the right to vote for the town of elections?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Wren, I have questions for you. Will the ETJ stop another town or city from annexing the people in the, stop people from being annexed into their ETJ, or from the ETJ?
I don't have any reason to question what Barry just said. To my knowledge, that it does not stop an annexation.
Will
In fact,
they be-
I think STEM has done that.
Will they be able to vote in the town elections?
To my knowledge, they would not be able to vote in town elections.
That answers my questions. Thank you, sir.
Board, any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Commissioner Gooch.
How does your Unified Development Ordinance affect the people in the proposed ETJ that already live there?
It was implemented as today?
If it was
adopted today?
If the ETJ was established, how would the Unified Development Ordinance affect the people who've already lived there? What would they have to change?
Nothing, unless they decided to develop their property.
I posed this question to Attorney Wren earlier, and if you're in the ETJ, Unified Development Ordinance does not apply to you unless you develop your land. Am I correct, Attorney Wren?
Partially correct. It would apply to you. So if you made a change of use on your property or something along those lines, you would have to comply with the UDO. But if you just kept status quo, it wouldn't require you to retrofit or come into compliance with the UDO.
And could someone give us an example of change of use, what that would mean?
If I may, Mr. Gooch, I'm Bob Hornick, by the way. I'm the STEM town attorney with the Bro Law Firm in Chapel Hill. One thing I wanted to clarify also is that just like in the county's zoning jurisdiction, if the ETJ were created, if you have agricultural operations, they are bona fide farms and they're exempt from zoning regulations. So certainly agricultural operations wouldn't be affected at all. And any existing use, anything that is there today would be, we'll call it grandfathered. It can continue to exist in its current form, under its current operation, without being affected by any of the STEM regulations, which, as Mayor Dover said, were designed and intended to mimic, to be the same, essentially the same as what the county regulations are over the area right now.
Mr. Gooch, my understanding is, though, if you had a home in the ETJ and you wanted to add on to it or build a garage or have an in-law suite or something like that, then you would have to comply with the new UDO if you made any changes to what you currently have. In other words, as long as you make no changes, you wouldn't have to retrofit, but any new construction or changes would have to comply with the UDO.
And I agree with Jim on that. But of course, I would also say that the agricultural district under the STEM ordinance is essentially the same as it is under the county's ordinance now. So in real life, there ought not to be any difference.
I understand we're getting out in the weeds here, but if someone added on to the house, added an in-law suite or something to the house, would they have to pave their driveway?
No.
Would they would have to go to the county for purposes the same, correct?
But for building permits, because we don't do building permitting, but for zoning compliance, they'd have to come to the town.
Just.
They would have to do whatever.
Any misconceptions
They
here.
would have to do with whatever was in the zoning ordinance at that time.
At that time, yeah. And just so, for the sake of the crowd that's here, was worried about the town changing the rules. I mean, the county can change the rules in that area today if it wanted to, too. And no one's suggesting that. Not the town, and as far as I know, not the county. You know, the ordinances can be amended from time to time following the public hearing process that Mayor Dover was talking about. So it's really, there ought to be no noticeable difference, although I'm not diminishing anyone's objection to the ETJ. The only point I really want to make is the ability to have an ETJ was created by the legislature about 60 years ago. It's nothing new. It's been on the books since 1958 or 1959. So it's been around for a long time. And from the town of STEM's perspective, it's a discussion that we need to have for STEM's sake. And while it's painful today, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, I think everyone, the Board of Commissioners, and even the people living in the ETJ will be glad we had the discussion today. Because you're just putting off the inevitable if you put it off too long. So I hope we can continue to have the discussion.
Perfect. One second. Commissioner Gooch, do you have any follow-up?
One other question. Has STEM met all the legal requirements associated with this? Because there was a speaker earlier that said they hadn't.
I'm absolutely confident that we've met all the legal requirements. We haven't finished the process. We've gotten only to the part of the process where we've adopted the resolution and sent it to you to ask for your authorization. Should you give us that authorization, we still have to go through the process of adopting the ordinance to create the ETJ and then to implement the zoning for the ETJ area in the area. So there's still a couple more steps in the process, but I am confident that we've followed the letter of the law all the way through thus far.
Commissioner Cozart.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I just want to make a couple of comments. So first of all, to the elected officials in STEM, one of the things that's caused me heartburn with this, we've taken a lot of pride over the years to work with all of our governmental entities. And the only question I have is, I think it was mentioned that the STEM Planning Board developed the ETJ as it is today. Was there any involvement from those who were in the ETJ, in the affected area, a part of any of that, either formally or informally, in the development of the ETJ?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
Their board doesn't have an ETJ membership the way Butner, Creedmoor, and Oxford do. So they've never had an established ETJ, so they wouldn't have representation on that board.
Correct.
So,
Commissioner Karan.
if I could, I know that the attorney kind of spoke to how long this practice has been allowed within the purview of what municipalities are allowed to do. And I want to say I applaud this board for taking advantage of, advantage is not the right word, but using what's granted you by the powers of the legislature that created your positions, that you advocate on behalf of those who put you in office. And that's a tall leap to do sometimes, because look at this room. It's full of people who hate you, who are calling you a non-Christian, who don't believe that you are praying good enough. Vilifying you, saying you're a rhino, which is a slant if you're a Republican. In the Senate right now, 675 is working its way through, and the legislature has the ability to give it and take away. Having been a former municipal official, I found myself in your shoes in 2006. The city of Creedmoor attempted an involuntary annexation, not an ETJ move, but an involuntary annexation of an urbanized area. That area became urbanized. It was known as the Lion Station Sanitation District. It was also the Cozart Sanitation District. Pre-Sigwasa, County Board of Commissioners ran a sewer system and water system. And neighborhoods like Rogers Point and industries like Altech and the food line on Highway 56 All those properties were developed and urbanized, apartment complexes with 420 some odd people in them, doctors' offices, shopping stores. You get the picture. Urbanization. It was this Board of Commissioners whom honored property owners' requests to utilize available water and sewer in that area and facilitated that through a water and sewer sanitation district. Okay, so it was this county board who were building and urbanizing. It wasn't your neighboring jurisdictions coming in the dark of night and trying to steal some people away from you through another voluntary annexation. Property owner rights, if somebody wants to voluntarily annex into a municipality that's, a few feet this way or that way, that's one thing. But when a county itself urbanizes areas next to a municipality, that's a misgiving. And it was something that happened in the past. Past performance is no indicator of future performance, nor is any board bound by decisions made by another board. So any board can come in and undo what a board does. So as far as you being able to change things, it is what it is. But again, after that voluntary annexation or involuntary annexation, the town of Butner was created. It spawned a good thing. Seguasa was also created about the same time as that involuntary annexation. The county got out of operating the Cozart and Lion Station sanitation districts. In '08, then Mayor Jack Day passed a resolution at Seguasa to grant all of the interests and infrastructure that is owned by the town of Stem over to the Seguasa sewer system. Butner had done the same thing. So did the county. At that same meeting on February 1st of '08, Mayor Jack Day made a motion to strip Creedmoor of its voting rights on the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority. That motion was seconded by Tom Lane. It carried with 5 members voting in affirmative and 2 members voting negative. That would have been the city of Creedmoor. So from that time forward until 2017, when the city of Creedmoor sold its infrastructure to the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority, there was a point where there was no voting rights. We talk about voting rights. Okay, those are quasi governmental NGOs that are established. But what I'm getting to is it used to be at a different time in a different era. This ETJ establishment was really important for the growth of the municipality. I think that time has probably come to an end. So I understand that people are upset because change is hard, but the legislative process is necessary, and the democratic process is necessary. And we have people yelling at us from day one, and I say yelling, I don't mean that. I mean coming and speaking to us in a slightly aggressive manner. When the very first thing you see on social media is there's this thing around the meeting at the fire hall, STEM wants an ETJ. Oh, Commissioner May and Commissioner Hinman are up for re-election. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that I know you all have dealt with, and I know that you've got a competitor in this year's race because of folks wanting to make sure that their neighbors feel the wrath of what they have encountered themselves. So we've been through that era before. Hopefully we don't go backwards. I'm just, long-winded on saying, I understand your consternation about having someone sneak in and encroach upon you and develop. There's a water line that runs to your north that could very easily be tied back into the south. And redundancy is a great thing in a water system. And Jimmy can attest to this. But as a voting member of Seguasa, I will not extend water and sewer services into an unincorporated area to urbanize that area unless it's under a very extreme situation. So the municipality in that area, whether it be Butner, the city of Creedmoor, or the town of Stem, would be the one that would have to sponsor any type of urbanization. And that's just my personal opinion, and hope that the board would support me voting that way on Seguasa. So hope that sums it up for you.
We like that. We love it to be policy. I know you can't do this policy, but we would love to have that as policy, right? So we put that to rest, right?
One thing I've heard, and I don't know if I had a satisfactory answer yet, is dealing with the farmland. There seems to be some concern about whether people can still farm or not farm, whether it's still a bona fide farm or not a farm within the ETJ. Can you elaborate on that?
There's something in the statutes, Chapter 160D, called bona fide farms, okay? So if there is a bona fide farm operation, not just someone who's living in a house and not doing any agriculture, but if there's a bona fide farm operation, either in fact they're actually raising cattle or raising crops, or if they meet, I think there are three or four different standards. You have a forestry plan, do you have a farmer's ID number, and I think there's one other criterion. If you have any of those things, you can be considered a bona fide farm, and zoning regulations don't apply to bona fide farms by statute. So that if you have an agricultural operation, again, let's just say it's a cattle farm, technically if you wanted to put up a 50-story building, even though in the AG district there's a 35-foot height limitation, you could have put up a 50-story building.
So it's your opinion that there's no change if someone was actively farming, or not actively farming, had farmland, that there would be no change their status if an ETJ would be approved.
The creation of the ETJ would not have any impact on the bona fide farm status of any actual bona fide farm.
Okay. And Mayor Dover, am I correct that your UDO was most recently passed and most currently mirrors the county's in May of this year?
Yes, sir. I believe it's May 24th of 2023.
And so the initial information that was put out to the residents was not, in fact, that UDO?
Correct.
And so
it was missing the agricultural section, the zoning region.
Were the citizens in the ETJ provided those changes?
Yes, it was posted on our website, and they were highlighted in red in the UDO with the updates.
Okay. And I take it that you had several public meetings concerning the ETJ proposal?
Yes, sir. We actually had 2 informational sessions. Even though legislation requires us to have 1 public hearing, we had 2 informational sessions because the thought was to bring people together, but we were quickly told we weren't from here, so we didn't know what we were talking about.
Okay. Are there any other questions the board would like to ask before we move on? 1 second.
Just one comment.
Yes, sir.
As you can tell, as everyone here can tell, all of our board members are very interested in this. We're down 2 board members tonight. They're District 1 and District 2. And I would like to hear their input into this as well.
Are you making a motion, Mr. Gooch?
I'd make a motion that we table this matter until such time as we have a full board present. And that, the board has a long-standing policy or position of not addressing ETJ issues. And I believe we need all members present before we change that long-standing position.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails. Board, you have before you the request of the town of STEM. Thank you, Commissioner Gooch, and for your concerns. You have before you the request of the town of STEM. I want to provide some guidance to our board. The board has no statutory requirement to take action, and there's no time period for any decision to be made. Secondly, or the board may take action. Now, before we move into this phase, I just want to remind the audience that the board will be voting if there's a motion, and we hope that you will be kind and courteous as we go through this process. We do understand that there's a lot of emotions here, a lot of concern. So with that in mind, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board decline to agree to STEM's request to extend its extraterritorial powers.
Mr. Chair, second motion.
Second. I have a motion made by Commissioner Hinman to decline. I have a second motion by Commissioner Cozart. Discussion, board.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows out there in our audience, I did not do that because I was threatened. I do not appreciate being threatened. I had to do this by my conscience. So I wanted you to know that, and I will not be threatened again.
Any other commissioner have any comments? Commissioner Karan? Commissioner Gooch? Cozart? Commissioner Gooch?
I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we take no action due to the fact that we are 2 members down.
Okay, noted. Are there anybody that's willing to second that substitute motion? We will stay with the initial motion, which is to decline the ETJ. At this point of discussion, I'd like to make a statement on behalf of myself. I've carefully reviewed the town of Stem's request. The mayor and his board view their actions as those they were elected to act upon. The town of Stem has worked and talked about establishing the ETJ for some time. The County Board of Commissioners supports the growth and prosperity within the town of Stem, as we do with all our county municipalities. I also know Mayor Dover to be a good and decent man who seeks to better the quality of life for his residents of Stem and their neighbors. I have heard and appreciate the concerns of the residents within the proposed ETJ. The fear of uncertainty and changes to life they desire has brought about much anxiousness. It is clear those who oppose the ETJ want no part of it, regardless of the newly adopted UDO by the town of Stem, which aligns with the county ordinance. My vote's considered is not influenced by innuendos or negative comments. It's influenced based on my principle and values of what I believe in the best interest of the county. County commissioners serve all residents of the county, those who are in municipalities as well as those in unincorporated areas. Today we live in a very different era than when a municipal government study commission was formed in 1958 to study ETJs. For instance, annexation is in all cases is now voluntary. Health and safety concerns are managed by more robust legislation, regulations, agencies than existed in the late 1950s when this study was occurred. Furthermore, Granville County has had a county-wide zoning since 1989. There's no threat that a development will occur adjacent to STEM in an unregulated manner. The current STEM UDO adopted in May 2023 mirrors that of the county. County zoning adequately protects the municipal borders from unregulated growth, and water and sewer infrastructure may be delivered through voluntary annexation. We now live in the third fastest growing state in the union. A suburb of RTP and real overt growth has arrived, and much more is likely to come if and when the economy improves. I believe to maintain our rural character, to allow our municipalities to thrive and have a win-win, government and citizens must come to a consensus on how the two can merge to maintain the desired character of the community. I admit this will not be easy, but for our county, it's my desire we find the right arrangements and agreements so we may protect property rights and the ability of our towns to responsibly grow without creating an atmosphere of infringement. This commissioner believes in limited government for those citizens who wish to live in a rural setting with little amenities. They take on greater personal responsibilities, a lower tax burden, and less dependence upon government, an individual decision, each of you. In turn, those who live in a municipality seeks most often to have greater amenities and services. They can expect a greater tax burden and greater regulations and more government interaction. Again, a personal and individual decision. Those living in the ETJ may feel that they have limited representation or influence on local government decisions as they don't have voting rights for town officials despite being impacted by town regulations. STEM officials will offer ETJ residents places on boards to include the planning board, but still these ETJ residents will not be permitted to vote in municipal elections. ETJ residents may also feel their rights are infringed upon because the town may impose additional regulations and restrictions on their property and land, if not today, at some point in the near or distant future. I want to make this clear. My vote will be based on my conscience, my values, my principles, regardless of individuals who disagree or don't agree with it. I hope that we can come together as a community and treat each other with mutual respect, even when we disagree. At last, I want to make this clear, my vote is not anti-growth, but a principled vote based on my views and values that relates to limited government, the right to representative government, and the current era of zoning and ordinances, which is very different today than in 1958. Lastly, my vote on this matter is not solely related to this town of STEM, but it would be the same should another municipality request the expansion of their ETJ. It will not, this board member will not treat STEM any differently than any other city that would make the request or municipality. With that motion, and I have a second, do I have any other comments for discussion?
Just one other. We vote, I hope everyone understands that we've opened the door for Butner, Creedmoor, and STEM to come to us and ask for expansion of the ETJs. If we remain consistent, we will have to vote no. If we vote no for STEM. By not taking up the issue, we could avoid having to vote no to anyone.
Having not, Commissioner Gooch, with all due respect, we've sat through numerous meetings. The residents, I believe, in the town of STEM would like a response and a vote. I understand, but no action, in my view, is inaction. And I respectfully respect your opinion. Commissioner Hinman, do you have any?
I just feel that everybody has the right for a vote, and that is my only reason to vote, make this motion. So I agree.
With that said, and there's no other comments, and I appreciate Commissioner Gooch's desire and to want a full body vote, and I admire his tenacity in that matter. With that, Madam Clerk, I'd like to take a roll call vote based on the motion of Ms. Hinman, which is, Ms. Hinman, if you would repeat it, please.
Gladly. I move that the board decline to agree to STEM's request to extend its I can never say this, ETJ powers.
So we're voting to decline, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So we'll make sure that people answer that in the manner in which they intend to answer it. So if someone would answer that question, they vote to recline, it would be?
A yes vote.
Okay. So is all the board members understanding of that?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
I'll go by district, and of course, District 1 and 2 are not here. District 3, Commissioner Hinman.
Yes.
District 4, Cozart.
Yes.
District 6, Tim Karan.
Yes.
District 7, Gooch.
I abstain.
And District 5, Chair May.
Yes. Motion passes. This board declines the STEM ETJ request. Mayor Dover, on behalf of our board and behalf of your council, and for your council, I want to thank the energy and effort that you place in this. I thank you for your vision that you have for your town. I also want to thank the residents that have come out and spoke on many occasions and that have stated how they feel about this. And I'm hopefully that the community can move forward in a positive way. And hopefully, I want to repeat something that I read here I think is very important. We now live in the third fastest, and to make sure, yes, the third fastest, so forth and so on. I believe we maintain a rural character to allow our municipalities to thrive and to have a win-win. Government and citizens must come to a consensus on how the two can merge to maintain the desired character of our community. I admit this is not easy, but for our county, it's my desire we find the right arrangements and agreements so that we may protect the property rights and the ability of our towns to responsibly grow without creating an atmosphere of infringement. I believe that is the consensus of this board. Thank you very much. We would ask if you're going to leave now that this matter has been resolved, that now is a good time. Mr. Wren, did I miss something?
I hate to do this, but we're trying to follow the correct procedures here. A member can only be excused from voting if there's financial, I'll just read the statute. The board may excuse a member from voting, but only upon questions involving the member's own financial interest or official conduct or on matters which a member is prohibited from voting under GS 14-234, 160D-109. So I'm sorry, an abstention is not something that can be done on one of these.
So we've already had the vote, so is for me to ask Mr. Gooch for
I think Mr. Gooch has to vote one way or the other, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Mr. Gooch votes no. Mr. Dover.
Mr. Murray, so one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand, especially people in the community, our town's 112 years old. In our charter, we meet the third Monday of every month. So I invite them, the door is always open. Come hear what's going on and see what Tim's plans are. There's been no intent to hide things here. We want you, you're open door to, you're invited. It's just an effort to be there. So thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. I have great respect for you, Mayor. You know that. And thank you. And this matter's closed. We will take I think it's appropriate to take a short recess at this time. And thank you very much. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Board and Commissioners, for what you've done. I think you did an awesome job.
And Mr. Drew Cummings, so
Yes, Cody.
before we go into the next item, I just want to make this clear. I appreciate Commissioner Gooch's comments, and we may not always agree on things, but what we do try to do is allow every member to voice their opinion on how they feel about something, whether it's agree or not, don't agree. And sometimes, and we need to do it publicly more often, so I appreciate him standing his ground. With that being said, I'd like to move on to Ms. Jennifer Griffin. If I'm correct, Madam Clerk, it's a late exclusion application. And to consider the approval of untimely filed application for age exclusion. Ms. Griffin, I'll allow you to cover the background. I think commissioners did have the opportunity this afternoon for the confidentiality of the resident to review the letter.
Okay.
So if you could give us a little background and then make your recommendation to us so we may make the appropriate decision.
Okay. All right, so Lewis and Marianne Dull, they turned in their application June 23rd, 2023. So we know that the cutoff time for elderly exclusion is June 1st. So according to North Carolina General Statute 105-282.1, upon showing good cause by an applicant for failure to make timely application, an application for exemption or exclusion filed after the close of the listing period may be approved by the Board of Commissioners. This subsection applies only to property taxes levied by the county or municipality in the calendar year in which untimely application was filed. They were filing their 2023 elderly exclusion. And a letter was sent to us explaining that during that time, they had gone through a traumatic loss of a family member, and they were incapacitated for.
And if I'm correct, both husband and wife are in their 80s.
They are in their 80s.
That's right. And they're still managing our affairs, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So what is your recommendation, ma'am?
to approve the application.
Board, we've had time to review this. Has any board member not had time to review it? Are there any questions for Ms. Griffin?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Gooch made a motion to approve. Ms. Hinman made a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Move on to the next item. Sheriff Fountain. So I want to provide some context to the sheriff being here tonight. The purpose of this item is for the sheriff to provide information about crime, statistics and trends, and other information relevant to public safety in Granville County. So what we've asked the sheriff to do is to provide the board on a quarterly basis information regarding to statistical data, crime data, programs, funding concerns, funding issues, in a way that he can report to us so that we can hear this throughout the year and keep the residents up to date of what's going on within our sheriff's office, what the needs may be, and how we encounter them. And then at the same time, provide the sheriff an opportunity to have a public forum to speak about what's going on in the sheriff's department and some of his biggest challenges. And we intend to do this on a quarterly basis. So before we start, Sheriff Fountain, I would like, on behalf of the board, we met with you earlier in July, I believe, soon, I think the day before July 4th. And so to make this request, and you agreed. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for coming before our board, and I provide the floor to you in the format in which you desire.
First, as customary, I first give honor to God for the position He put me in. And I always thank my team for preparing us to deliver information to the board and to the residents of Granville County as it is requested. How are we doing? We're doing exceedingly well. We made a lot of progression in what we do. In this second quarter of this year, the Granville County Sheriff's Office responded to 4,586 calls for service. 4,586 calls for service. We have served 784 civil orders, 105 protective orders, 146 criminal summons, 342 CCW permits. So we're working. We're doing what is right. We're doing what is factual that we can show. So when we start looking at the federal UCR, the Uniform Code of Crime Reports, we will see that from your handouts that you have from 2017 to 2021, the crime in Granville County has not been exploding or anything of that sort. To this date, we don't have a homicide in the Granville County. We're working with local federal partners to do what is right. As of last week, we've started taking on federal inmates. We're in conversations with the Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Marshal Service, which the U.S. Marshal, Mr. Glenn McNeil, came to us along with the United States Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney for Granville County, to become the hub for the Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Marshals to basically store inmates up, have them there, and then we transport them out to other facilities. We have a contract with them that expires in October. And that contract is now, we're going to start working with the county manager and the county attorney to make sure that we are funded adequately for housing federal inmates. So we've taken on 7 last week, and we're going to progress to take on 7 every week till we have about 50 in one pod. Somewhere between 20 to 50 will be in the facility by the end of the month. The Federal Bureau of Prisons came and did an inspection last week. U.S. Marshal came and did an inspection, and brought 8 people with them to make sure that we're in compliance. The medical staff for Southern Health Partners, who's working with us to make sure that we're not incurring any inmates that have severe medical conditions, so it doesn't put a burden on us. We've got a rate when we have to transfer inmates to Butner or anywhere else that is not where I want it, but it's at $27 an hour for us to transport inmates from our facility to either court and or to Butner. We're trying to get that rate to $40 an hour to move inmates to transport. We're training our staff to be better servants. Right now, we have 72 positions. I always want more. We have 72 positions. Of those 72, we have 6 that are admin positions. 66, that leaves us 66 sworn positions, 5 bailiffs, and 3 part-timers. Of the 66 sworn positions, we have 60 that are filled. We have 6 vacancies. Of those 66, we have 7 that are in BLET as I speak right now. We have 5 more that will be going to BLET in January, as we still try to recruit more people. That's on the LEO side. On the detention side of today, Miss Angela said we're full. We can't hire anymore because we have 11 in the box right now about to get hired on. So we're moving in the right direction. We are aggressively recruiting, and we will continue that until we are full. Most recently, we've started looking at how we can make things better with partnerships. We have 3 federal agencies that want to partner back with the Granville County Sheriff's Office. The U.S. Marshal Service has asked us for a task force officer out of Granville County Sheriff's Office, the DEA, and the FBI. One of the biggest things that we've incurred recently, which we're meeting with an ongoing investigation that we can speak to, we found a tiny home that was stolen in Granville County. That tiny home led us to a stolen truck. That stolen truck led us to 200 vehicles missing from RDU Airport. So we are now working with the federal government, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Assistant U.S. Attorney to, I think we're meeting with them on Wednesday. The corporate security directors from Avis Rental Car will be here on Wednesday for us to start this joint operation to recover as many of these 200 vehicles that we can find. So we found the first one in Granville. We located some more in other counties, and us, the sheriffs and us, are working together to bring this thing to closure. So that's where we are. We're working. If you probably have seen a lot more tickets being written on the southern end, Mr. Chavez, who we got from Creedmoor PD, I think he's up to about 20 citations because the southern end of the county started giving me a call and said they wanted more presence. So right now, Mr. Chavez is working that end of the county more than most would have seen prior to now. We've, I can't cover that. Due to some confidentiality stuff, we have some other stuff going on that's going to make our community safer. We're working with ALE. Jack Cates and I are working together to get some stuff done. We have several undercover operations that are going, and we're moving. And every quarter, we will bring you the stats. We're going to look for having our own CAD system so we can have data-driven information to show you what we're doing. The analytics are there, which the 911 Communications Center has the CAD system now. We want our own CAD system so I can generate those reports and not have to go somewhere else and ask somebody for it to get the information I need to share with the board. And when the liaison commissioner, when you come in and want to ask me questions, I want to be able to pull that information readily versus waiting to go to somebody else to get that information. I spoke to the county manager and the county attorney and referenced that as well today. So we're going to be data-driven, so we'll give you the facts, and that's where we are. The state is strong, my team is strong, and we're doing what we're supposed to. I'm glad of that.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I know I have some, but I'm not going to start it off, so if,
I do.
Ms. Hinman?
Sir, how many of our officers that are employed at this moment still need to get their BLT?
BLT or BLET?
That's the
We
one.
all love a sandwich here now.
I'm
So,
ready to eat.
right now, of the 66, we had 60 sworn, so 53.
53?
53 are sworn out of the 60.
So for the edification of the public, DLT is basic law enforcement training.
Correct. Hold on, let me make sure.
Not
I
a
do my math.
sandwich.
Let me do my math.
Is that including the prison itself?
No, doesn't include the jail. So we have students in the jail right now going through DCO school. So we got 66. I'm gonna do some math. 48. Because we have 7 going to school now, 5 in January, and we're still trying to recruit. We just hired a couple more that came from Wake Med Police Department, so they're onboarding. I didn't include them in this count.
So you have 48 certified?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Hinman?
That was my major question. I just want to make sure that we have legally educated people that are not running around eating BLTs.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner?
That changes in July of 2024. In July of '24, the Sheriff's Training and Standards is a requirement to hire people that already have been to school.
Can you explain, Sheriff, for the public, what they're currently under? It's a one-year probation period, am I correct?
Yes, sir. The General Statute 162-24 affords the sheriffs currently to hire people, maintain them under the sheriff's certification, and Sheriff's Training and Standards will honor the sheriff's certification or the elected position of sheriff for 1 year. At the end of that year or sometime in that year, then those people have to go to basic law enforcement training, and then if they don't, then we have to do something with them. If they can't pass or fail BLET, or for some form or fashion pass part of it and fail part of it, they still have an opportunity to go back. I have one deputy that has to go back just to take the POPAT. So there's two significant parts to the BLET certification. One is the book part and the test, and one was the physical requirements. He did not pass the physical requirements by 43 seconds. And he has to go back to take the physical part of it during this class. So he'll PT with this class, every day they PT, and he has to do the things to get him ready just to pass that portion of it. If he gets to where I can ask him he's ready to go, then they will give him the opportunity to pass the physical part of it, and then he's squared away.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cozart.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, when we built the jail, we were talking about at that time being able to have the capacity to bring in federal inmates. So very happy to see that moving along. And that National Night Out up at the Masonic Home, I'm very impressed with the interaction of all of the officers. The Oxford PD had some there, and of course, your team was there. And for the young people to have those kind of interactions, I think it's so positive to position them to feel free to let the officers know if there's something going, to have that kind of relationship. So was very happy to see them there to engage with all of our citizens.
Thank you, sir. And this past weekend, I think Commissioner May must have paid some little kids off, because it looked like every child at the Duncan booth was waiting on me to get up there. So,
I didn't have enough money.
was that you? But it was a good back-to-school bash. Speaking of schools, if I can, sir, we will have, once Mr. Chris Day, who's coming from Wake Forest, Wake Med, and Mr. James Benefield are coming on board, we will probably have 2 extra SROs in the waiting. Right now, we have the positions filled for our SROs. The 7 that we're looking for are 7 SROs / just 2 security guys, well, people that we're going to have as security officers until they go through the SRO school, but they have an enormous amount of law enforcement experience. So we have those on board. We've identified every school that our SROs will be covering. That information from Mr. Newman should be shared with the school superintendent within tomorrow morning, because we wrapped that up. He and I spoke on Saturday. So we'll have that. When the 2 individuals come out of BLET, I will still have 2 people in the wings that have the ability to be SROs. That's Ms. Jennifer Cruz and Mr. Gerald Latta.
Thank you, Sheriff.
So my question is, we only have 7 for the SROs, rather?
That's what we're allotted.
Okay, but so
I'll
how?
take more.
Well, I just think that each school needs one.
Yes, ma'am.
That's actually going to be covered later in the agenda.
Oh, never mind.
Thank you. Commissioner Gooch?
No comment.
No comment. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Karan?
Just one quick follow-up on the detention side, the scanner. Have you gotten all your badges, radioactive indicator badges, staff all trained up on that?
Staff are all trained, got the certifications done. We have 2 radiation badges per shift, and the jail administrator has 1. We've started running inmates through the scanner. So inmates go through, everybody gets scanned. When we look at staff, we're looking at a selective whose staff go through it. So yes, sir, that's up and running. The UVC lighting system, I was asked to put that out. We put that out on social media with the disinfectant. In fact, we're going to take it into an office tomorrow to disinfect one of our employees' offices. So everything that you have presented to us or have proved for us, we're in the right position to do those things. I think we had a taser class today to where more of our employees will be able to defend themselves against any attacks. So I'm trying to get all my staff taser trained. Our transportation section for the jail is coming on board. The courthouse security has been fully staffed with Ms. Alves taking it over. Judge Dunlow is taking real concerted efforts to make sure we're doing things the right way, even when hearings are held at Central Regional Hospital, making sure that we have a deputy there with him when he does the hearings at Central Regional Hospital as well.
Any other commissioners have any questions for the sheriff? I have a few, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
What does our patrol staffing look like at this point?
Right now,
How many do we have on a nightly basis, a daily basis, and weekends?
nightly, we've got a flex schedule. So right now, Science Patrol, there are 5 deputies, 1 lieutenant, and 1 person that runs flex. So a flex is, on one side, Mr. Tyler Ellis runs with 2 squads. He will work from 1 to 1, so he overlaps. And then Mr. Higgs, we just pushed one of our investigators to cover a shift. So we're gonna rotate our investigators through the other rotation, which is A and B squads. They will work 1 to 1. The lieutenants work 2 to 2. The sergeants work that shift from 6:45 till 7A or P, depending on what their rotation from the DuPont schedule, I'm sure you know. So we have approximately 5 as the minimum. On one shift, I think it's D, they have about 7.
So you have supervision, you at least have a lieutenant or sergeant on every shift?
Correct.
Okay.
There's only 1 rotation that has a corporal. I just hired a sergeant from Youngsville PD who we promoted to corporal. We wanted to see how he was going to progress. He's been in the system 20 years, and he is running that shift with the lieutenant until we feel fit in 6 months. Maybe we'll promote him to sergeant, but we have to evaluate him right now. I brought him in as a corporal, but he has about 20 years experience, radar certified, and he hit the road running.
So we can assume that during a night shift or a day, any shift, because incidents can happen anytime, we can assume that we have experienced BLED certified deputies on the road, and obviously not supervision positions, but adequate coverage to cover the county.
Yes, sir, and even to the point where this past weekend, I think I was out for the shooting that happened up by Walmart and the big fight they had over at Wendy's. So we helped OPD with both of those this weekend as well. So it's not just the deputies out there, my command staff, lieutenants, and even with every unit is responsible to check on at 7 a.m. So civil investigations as well as SOD have to check on. And then on weekends from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 1 or 2 deputies from those specialized units are on the road as well.
Do you, not wanting, obviously not to discuss sensitive information, but you lost a number of employees during the course of your first several months in the job for various reasons. Have you been able to kickstart and reinvigorate your drug enforcement unit and get that? Is that getting close?
Yeah, it's real close. It's up and running. We have, again, sensitive information that we can't do, but yes, it's up and running. Even we got a guy Thursday. Actually, my drug investigator, Mr. Jackson, and I stopped the individual getting off 85, and he was arrested with a substantial amount of marijuana in the car. But because we're going to use him as a source.
So your drug enforcement unit is staffed?
Is staffed.
Okay. And they're able to conduct operations?
Yes, sir. We're only 1 investigator short. Of the 8 positions that's assigned for the Special Operations Unit, we're 1 investigator short.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
The crime trends, during our next meeting, I hope that you'll be able to provide us with some violent crime stats versus routine type statistical data so that we can, as the sheriff of Granville County, what does violent crime look like in Granville County, statistically speaking? The best understanding that you don't have all the numbers you need, and what does our property crime look like?
So if you go back traditionally, and we'll go with property crimes from 2018, we have that information. So 2018, when you started talking about Butner, it's 177 incidents or occurrences. 122 in 2019, 2020 it was 151. 2021 it trended down to 147. The thing is, the UCR is about 18 months behind.
Got it.
So we will start, again, that's why I want the CAD for us. So I can start going into the analytics part and pulling out those numbers and present them to you in a timely manner versus waiting.
Will you actually be able to have someone that's going to be working on analytics to help you?
We just snagged somebody from the SBI.
Okay.
She's in the hiring process now.
Because I think it really helps to the county residents if they know what are the issues and concerns of most, particularly when it comes to violent crime, where that would most often occur. My final question for you, Sheriff, is that 2 years ago, this board, over 2 years ago, this board adopted as part of a strategic plan a accreditation as a pinnacle for the sheriff department to work towards, and both in the law enforcement and in the detention center.
Yes,
where are we at on that?
We are still in the policy development and cleaning things up. Because of some personnel matters, we had to separate our relationship with one of those individuals. Mr. Bayless is generous enough that he always helps with my policy development, but we separated our agreement with the individual who was supposed to be helping with the ACA.
Okay.
So right now, I'm in the process and spoke to the county attorney and the county manager. I'm contacting Mr. Art Beeler, who was the warden of the federal prison.
Yep.
I'm also talking with Johnny Hawkins, who was a warden at one of the prisons. He is now the jail administrator at Durham. And we're going to work with Eddie Caldwell with the Sheriff's Association to make sure we still go to that process with CLIA accreditation and ACA
On the law enforcement end of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. I want to make sure I got you, that I asked you all the questions I intended to ask you, and I had one on the tip of my tongue and just lost it. So when can we expect to see new uniforms?
We have gotten our new patches, and I approved those last week, Mr. Bates, is that right? The new patches were approved last week. We've gotten all the trousers in. Now we're waiting for the patches to get sewn on. We got the badges in. The new badges, I think people should start seeing the gold shields versus the ones I decommissioned, the old silver ones. So those are already in play. The new striping of the vehicles is being regarded as a good thing. And even today, I had Commissioner Kaczynski left. I had her go through our suggestion box, and she was just surprised at how many people leave comments in our suggestion box out front to tell us what we're doing and how we're doing.
I know that you, the county manager and the assistant county manager, worked very hard to present to our board a financial compensation package for our deputies and our detention officers, actually the entire sheriff's office.
Yes.
Can you explain how that's benefited the sheriff's department, and that what ways are you going back to reduce costs?
We're reducing costs, and that's something me and Mr. Bayless talked about, of funneling and streamlining how purchases are done. And taking, when we looked at the fleet management system, and we just went through that process with Drew in the county to be able to buy, just not buying vehicles, but be able to track them from a structured system to where John Hardy, the former sheriff, works with Ms. Donna Webster on our vehicle assets, so we'll know what monies we're spending, what vehicle assets we're gonna get rid of, what we're surplusing to better service our community. But we're also looking at how to reduce those overtime hours, because if we can get more staff in place, we reduce our overtime hours. So when I started looking at the overtime rate that we saw last month, it was around 18%, because we were just getting through the last budget cycle and still clearing up. So I won't have a true actual budget of where the overtime is until I think the end of August is what Angela and I had talked about. But we're just being fiscal responsible. Anything that we can do, we went through Brooks to take all the old equipment that we had off of vehicles that we salvaged or vehicles that we surplused and sent it to Mebane so they can get store credits on any installs that we're putting together, any equipment we have to buy. Because they will refurbish some of the light bars and those types of things that we're taking off the vehicles that we're surplusing. And we have a structure in place where they're going to come back next week to get some more stuff. We have some old 3,500, 2,500 radios that we're going to get rid of because we have the 6,500s, which is the new ones that you approved maybe a year or two ago that's in boxes still at the warehouse.
So have we accounted for all our radios? I know that Mr. Reeves has a,
I think John and Reeves have been in communication. So I think we have, and I'll
if you'll make a note for you or Mr. Bayless to get back with Commissioner Karan, who's on Emergency Services Board, just kind of so we can track where that's at, or get back with Mr. Reeves.
And there will be a, next week, if we get everything approved that we need to do tonight, we're going to do a inventory of every piece of equipment that they have. When they start looking at cell phones, they start looking at their tough books. Their tough books are supposed to be replaced next year. So we're going to get an accurate count of everything, with the people that left, to the people that came, to the people that stayed. So we will be able to provide you accurate information to every piece of equipment, every dollar and dime which they've spent. And myself and Mr. Bayless are the only two people that can approve any purchases now. So we just went to that procurement process. Anything that needs to be seen, Mr. Bayless and I have to see it before anybody purchases anything.
Okay. That's all the questions I have regarding the sheriff's report. Does anybody else have any questions? We'll move on to the next agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, just like to say that it's really good to see that we're able to attract experienced officers from other agencies. As I listen to Sheriff Fountain's report, that is encouraging, and I hope that salary adjustments that you mentioned has played a role in that.
It has, Commissioner, and even working with Miss Angela is really important to where I can get some of these folks. I just hired a young lady from Morrisville PD. I hired a lieutenant from Youngsville, and we're starting to hire these individuals because we can offer them the salaries that are competitive based on their experience, education, and training. And she's been a benefit to us, working with Drew, making sure that we kind of doing it the right way. And even the detention side, the starting salaries is basically, that's why now we're almost full. Because we're getting people from other jails. Edgecombe County, somebody's coming from Edgecombe because they're closing their jail down because they failed their inspections. So Vance County Jail is not doing well, so they're coming to us because of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's, for you as the board, I'd like to commend you for the due diligence to make us where we are and where we're going.
Very good, Sheriff. With that comment, I'll move on to the next item. Item 14 is high capacity incinerator. And Sheriff, if you could, the purpose is to approve the purchase of one destructor S/C incinerator for Granville County Sheriff's Office. The request as follows, and I'll let the sheriff go into it, but in essence, an incinerator to actually cremate or burn evidence and so forth. So if you could, Sheriff, your proposal.
The request is to use and expend $14,335 in asset forfeiture funds, which we have for the incinerator. Currently, we have to put drugs in our warehouse, in vehicles, and take it to another county to destroy drugs that we should have been getting rid of. Currently, we have about 1,000 pounds of marijuana that should have been destroyed years ago sitting in the evidence room. So, okay. So we have to be able to start getting rid of this stuff. And it takes a clerk from the courts to go with us to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So having that ability to do it on site and for us to be self-sustained is what I'm trying to push towards. And the funding is there. We're going to look at how we can work with the animal control to see when they euthanize animals, how to get rid of them in a humane way and not have to take them to a landfill or take them anywhere. We can have them utilized or dealt with at our facility, but that goes with the EPA licensing and making sure we dot all the I's, cross all the T's to ensure that we're doing it the right way.
So if I understand correct, Sheriff, we have, Mr. Bayless, we have EPA approval, am I correct?
Correct. Law enforcement, we are exempt, so EPA allows that exemption. We're in conversation, I've spoken with the Kelly Department of Environmental Quality. We have a group pending, spoke with the engineer on several occasions this week, or last week, And we hope to have that approval in writing sometime this week.
So Commissioners, you may desire to approve this process so that when they destroy evidence, it is actually at the sheriff's office. It's under constant surveillance. There'll be a mechanism in place where 2 or more deputies are present.
And a clerk.
And excuse me?
And a clerk of court.
And a clerk. All the appropriate court documents are signed, so forth. And this would not be an incinerator for anything other than material, not anything of metals or anything of that nature. This would be solely for narcotics.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And even when we do the drug collection drop-offs, we'll be able to destroy them at our facility.
Maybe board, if we had a recommendation to approve with the caveat that.
I have one question.
Yep.
When we built the facility, didn't we put an incinerator there?
No,
A
ma'am.
brand spanking new top of the line? Scott's waving his head yes, you're saying no.
I don't know where it is.
Okay.
Well, County Manager, Mr. Phillips, can you help us with that?
Probably about 3 years ago, we bought the latest and greatest that was out there. Put it on the sheriff's office. The burn drugs.
Yeah.
I don't speak to the evidence custodian, I asked that question. There was a small capacity to destroy 2 to 3 pounds at a time. That's what I know of. I don't know of any large industrial pipe that could handle the type of volume that we would incur with large seizures of marijuana. They do have something in place to handle very small fill take back. It takes a long time to go through the burn process, but right now, as the sheriff stated, any large amount of narcotics needs to be destroyed. If they range with 10 CPD, in the past, in prior administrations, it was a landfill, which is not a great process.
That's right.
Either. So I'm not aware, and my team is there, that they ever use one.
So maybe I can just make some suggestions to the county manager and then to the board that the incinerator is needed and that we can approve it with the caveat that waiting for DEQ's final approval from an environmental standpoint, and then that we also task the county manager to work with the sheriff to identify whether or not there's any other capabilities there, and if the capabilities are there, what we met, get to the bottom of that, and the sheriff can report back to the county manager and give us, working with Mr. Phillips, and give us that information. In the event, I hate to be so wordy, but in the event that that we have the capabilities, then the board would use its discretion to deny the request, because we would want to make sure that we have the right thing. County Attorney.
And I just wanted to quickly ask about the procurement. It looks like there's one quote in the agenda, Rob. Was there more than one quote obtained?
This was, I believe, sole source. There was no manufacturer. I did not do the Keats quote, but my understanding, I looked at the company, they handle most of these types of equipment throughout the country.
Do you know if it's on state contract?
I do not check on that.
So, Mr. Chair, as long as the approval is contingent on making sure it meets purchasing requirements, since this is use of federal funds.
So the caveat is to get DEQ approval and meeting state purchasing all purchasing requirements that Mr. Bayless and Sheriff report back to county manager, and then I will leave it up to the board on how to make that motion.
Just I don't know if a question, observation. The fact that we're using this asset forfeiture monies and then looking through the specs, on it says loading feature 500-pound capacity, but then it talks about 1,000-pound abilities later on. You talked about a burn rate and that, but because it's being used for asset forfeiture and all that, I hesitate to, even though I was thinking outside the box, talk about putting cats and dogs from animal control, just the type of it they are. I mean, burning something wet that was alive versus burning something that's already, inert. Yeah, I just hate to muddy ruin the longevity of the machine, or, I mean, granted, you're going to be burning drugs, which are nasty, sticky, chemical-filled things, but, using it to incinerate animals from a time perspective and all that kind of thing, though I appreciate the thought, I just think that that's something that's a bridge a little on the far side for me personally.
We'll take that under advisement, Commissioner, and we want to just let you know what the capabilities were. And if ever it came thing where animal control or the animal shelter needed it, we would still have it.
Right. Or God knows if they had some kind of rabies outbreak or something where they had, something that was, not that we wanted in our landfill, which is how they dispose of them now.
Yes.
But
Commissioner, 2.8, I spoke to the animal control supervisor, and the rabbit handling R1 would potentially could offer was $200 per incident. So instead of doing the large volume, that may be something.
One-offs.
Yeah. Deal with that.
Yep.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request contingent upon contingent upon looking into the purchasing requirements and any other issues that county manager and county attorney feel deemed necessary.
Including DEQ?
Yes.
Yes. And I have a motion from Commissioner Cozart. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next is dealing, Sheriff, with the surplus and sale of AR-15 rifles.
Yes, sir. Presently, we have approximately right at 62 AR-15s that we're trying to surplus. We've looked around at local gun stores that would give us a fair market value for the weapons that we have. The background has been done through the ATF to make sure that those weapons are cleared to be surplus. Those weapons will be transferred to Cross Creek, where they will then give us store credit to buy weapons and equipment. They gave us the best, basically, bang for the buck. So we will be transferring or requesting to transfer those weapons as the new weapon systems come in, which you've already approved. And we will make sure that the deputies that have their service weapons now get those at a rate that is fair, and that those deputies have the first choice to purchase one of those weapons via serial number. And then they will be all transferred over to Cross Creek to do the proper paperwork to purchase them with their own funds. And the balance of those funds will be store credit moving forward. I think we transferred 37 shotguns there already. So we have about $3,000 or $3,700 sitting there because we purchased some equipment from them already. And the rest of it will be the same process.
Can you describe these ARs so that someone can get a little understanding that they're not, they're composite, they're not typically brand names, am I correct?
They were put together as a kit. There were no brand names, no Bushmaster, no anything with rims, anything. They weren't. They were bought from a local gun store as a kit that they put together, and then the former sheriff's name was engraved on 62 of them.
Okay. Board, we have approved some actions of past. County Attorney, do you have any questions?
No questions other than just for Mr. Bayless to confirm that the store credit meets federal requirements, and that then anything purchased with that store credit will be tracked under the equitable sharing program.
Yep. And you've discussed this with Mr. McNally as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. Board, do you have any questions?
Sheriff, is this a second round of these AR-15s that you're cycling out?
No, this is the first. The first thing we
I was
cycled out.
thinking we had a motion.
We had some shotguns.
Shotguns.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some shotguns. And
I think some of our local police departments are actually going to be like first in line.
Okay.
They will get a reduced price for those weapons. I think STEM, Butner, and Creedmoor have asked to be first in line to make those purchases at a rate commensurate to what we're going to sell to our deputies. And they will have to purchase those weapons at that price, and we've already discussed that with Cross Creek. So we will help our local and small agencies with their weapons as well. And then we're going to do the same thing, I think, in a month or so with some SIGs that we have that we need to get rid of as well.
And the purpose being to exchange for new platforms, which we can put a a long gun with a 5.56 round in capabilities for uniform patrol and other officers to be able to take on any threats that may come our way. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And we're looking at putting a vault in the courthouse because we want to start making sure that we'll be able to respond to an active shooter inside the courthouse. And that's why we're looking at all the security components to make sure that we're safe.
And then are you ensuring that as these weapons are issued, that we have the appropriate security and within our vehicles and the racks that to lock them down so that we have someone should enter a vehicle that they would be not easily accessible?
Yes, sir. And we're looking at biometric gun locks in the vehicle. So a thumbprint got to get you in, but you can't take it out unless you rip the whole seat out.
Okay. Board, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the recommendation coming from our sheriff.
Dr. Cozart moves to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Karan. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Finally, Sheriff, Sheriff Austin, migration to AT&T and FirstNet. I'm just going to let you explain it and take it from there. And probably a good course to start with is what do we currently have and what is FirstNet?
Currently, we have nothing. We have a stipend where the county has graciously awarded stipends to our deputies to utilize their personal cell phones to do their job for county purposes. But what that opens us up to is the deputies will utilize their personal phones that are subject to subpoena, because if they use it through anything with a case, they will be able to take their phone and extract information from it. And you're also giving them a stipend, a monthly stipend, which we found that some of the stipends are being paid out to people that shouldn't have them or don't even work for Granville County. So those funds are being still generated, and we're looking at those, and Chris has done a great job going through every one of those to find out where these phones were or where these stipends have went to and where this equipment has been assigned.
So you're saying we're still paying stipends, unidentified stipends?
To deputies currently, yes, and the jail staff. So moving currently the people that work for us, some of them are getting stipends, not everybody's getting them. So we didn't know until we started tracking which people were getting them and which they were not, and who were assigned stipends or phones or anything that we had to clean up. So since the 9/11, the poor communications that were generated, there was a need for a means for first responders to have first priority for a response to emergencies. So that's where FirstNet was birthed out of. And since then, they've been contracting with local and state law enforcement agencies because they get priorities to communication devices moving forward. So if Chris don't mind, come on down here. So as we did with our vehicles going into a fleet management system, we want to do the same thing with our communication systems. We want to make sure that we be able to track our deputies' phone service, phone usage, and make them more accountable and make it more cost effective than paying out a stipend to someone. And we also did some homework, and we saw that if we started doing certain things with different companies, we would have to utilize cradle points on our vehicles to create more access to communication devices. So FirstNet offered us the ability not to use cradle points. So if we put cradle points on our vehicles, it would have cost us $250,000 to outfit our vehicles with cradle points. So FirstNet and their services are going to generate something that's going to save us from having to go down that road of spending $250,000 so we could be fiscally responsible. So Chris, if you could share any other thing with FirstNet and how we did it, I'd be more than happy.
Good evening. So with FirstNet, it basically is a priority network. It allows the county to have true priority regardless of what's going on in the network. We utilize it currently with emergency management. They're offering a lower rate than we're actually getting on the stipends, so the county's actually saving money to move to FirstNet for each of the cell phones. To speak on what was said about the stipends and what we identified in that sense with the previous employees, we did an audit of our Verizon bill, and we noticed that there were multiple MiFis and multiple connections that were named under certain employees that were no longer here. We could not account for those devices, so it gave us the opportunity to actually close off those devices. And we're still calculating at what savings we were getting from those devices.
And this is on state contract?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So those MiFis are unaccounted for. I mean, what are we doing to resolve that?
They've been disconnected as of this moment.
Disconnected, but what about the physical property?
So once they're disconnected, we don't actually pay for the property. For the actual MiFis, they were
So it's not a loss to the county?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so loss to the provider, but not the county?
Yes, sir.
The service is no longer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's not an inventory issue, but you're trying to get, what you want to do is have a secure inventory system through this process, and it allows that?
Yes, sir. We're developing an inventory system based on previous situations. We're developing something moving forward to not have the situation occur.
And the system also allows for access from a legal perspective for discovery and things of that nature, so that it's an access point, and the deputies are well aware of the implications of that.
Yes, sir. So utilizing the Apple iPhones, it allows the sheriff's department to have basically full remote control access, full ability to pull backups of the phone at any given time.
Okay. Where do you stand with this?
The move to FirstNet?
Yes, sir.
I'm absolutely in agreement to it.
Okay. County manager?
The sheriff and IT director and I sat down for well over an hour, I think 2 weeks ago, and went through all the details of this transfer. I think operationally it's a really bad idea for us to be relying on deputies using their personal phones for a wide variety of reasons. I think that the priority that FirstNet gives us is an additional bonus on top of, I think, what is a better operational approach to gathering of evidence and communications among deputies and other first responders.
And finally, Mr. Bayless, in regards to FirstNet and the ability to respond, and that the ability to be able to utilize your phone in the event of a true crisis, can you just quickly explain that to the board?
Yes, sir. As the Sheriff said, after 9/11, the commission recommended that there's some type of form of communication that will allow for secure and access for all first responders. So if there were a event hurricane, for example, if the networks were down, one of two things can happen. They can bring in mobile connection with mobile towers here, which they've done in the past on some of the hurricane sites along the coast in Florida. That would be one option. The second option is if there was a mad rush of people trying to access the network, the sheriff's office would have priority. So all sheriff's deputies, first responders would have the ability to communicate with command staff, to be able to put out whatever exigent circumstances that they need to put out to the command staff of the sheriff's office. So it's a well-funded, engineered opportunity for the sheriff's department to come aligned with what local law enforcement agencies are doing within the area.
And I just want to add that when we mention priority, FirstNet is the only provider that will kick other civilians off the network for that priority.
And Sheriff, I noted that you wanted 85, and we have 66 sworn. Can you explain why we would need the additional 19?
So the 85 plus 10. And what it does is it gives us to where if we get fully staffed with our 72, it doesn't take into account we're looking at the jail staff who have to be a part of this process. So the command staff of the jail would also get phones because they're on 24-hour recall. Every phone will have a push-to-talk capability, so we won't have to tie up the lines. We have a push-to-talk like the old Nextel phone system, so we can talk around with each other. So if any categories of emergencies or anything pop up, and there are a lot of people on a network, we'll be able to communicate with each other to let people know what's going on, what we need to do, find out where we were. So if we learned anything from when Mr. Allen was shot, it was the fact that the radio communication, we bled over each other so much till we got to an event channel. So what that would do would give us an opportunity to narrowly specifically know where every deputy would be real time.
Okay.
And anytime I wanted to go into that phone to see exactly, just like Chris and them do with our laptops, they can remote to those phones to make sure that they're in compliance with the policies that they have to sign off on with the agreement, user agreement, when they get their phones.
Okay.
And they will be trained through FirstNet on how the phones work, set the groups up, and we will do everything in accordance with the policy that we're generating.
Okay. Board, it's, I think the 10 push-to-talk, Sonex, that's, would that be your tactical operator?
Those go for tactical, yes, sir.
Okay. So, based on this, Sheriff, you have 66 sworn positions and 72, but you are demonstrating a need of additional phones to cover the detention center and other staffing that are required to be available to assist as needed, correct?
Yes, sir, and we will leave the extra ones with Chris in IT, because if somebody breaks a phone or the phone goes down, we won't have to wait to grab one from FirstNet. We will have reserved phones that we can just have Chris go ahead and get up online and keep us moving.
Board, the sheriff has these funding in his budget. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Gooch, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Hinman, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Sheriff, for your report tonight. Thank you for coming for the board and explaining the progress of the Sheriff Department. And thank you, deputies, for your attendance tonight. We would like you to, some of you stay until we're completed, but for all of you, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for your consideration, and thank you for your contingent support of Granville County Sheriff's Office and this staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bayless. The next item is Granville County Human Relations Commission and the Fill a Vacancy on Human Relations Committee. County Manager, I'll let you take this, and I think the board will have one or two questions on this. Is that it?
As you can see on the screen, there are 3 vacancies, 2 from District 6 and 1 from District 7. I'm not sure about applications or other interested parties who've made themselves known to those commissioners, but I'll leave that up to those commissioners to announce.
Okay. My question I have for you is that the staff is aware that some committee members have exceeded their term limits stated in the current bylaws. A review of the current bylaws and term limits is in process. When can we expect to have that completed?
Good question. I need to review what the interns completed this summer and use that to bring back some across-the-board recommendations, but I do support, every time we have the opportunity to do so, using these appointments to get ourselves in line, at least with what the current bylaws state.
Correct. And I do think, and I think this board agrees, that it's important that we give all citizens the opportunity to participate on these boards and they not be limited to just the same persons continue to serve. With that being said, Ms. Brown from District 5 resigned and needs to be replaced. Board, I'd like to nominate somebody. May I?
I'll take it over for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. May, Commissioner 5, do you have a nomination for?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Clint Owens from District 5.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We've got a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Hinman to appoint Clint Owens to the District 5 Human Relations Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Back to you.
Commissioner Karan, there are also 2 District 6 vacancies. Do you have any nominations?
I would like to fill one of those 2 positions with Ed Gleason.
So, Mr. Ed Gleason to fill the District 6, and leaving another one vacant, but filling one. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Jimmy did.
Jimmy, I'm sorry. I did not hear you, sir. So, Mr. Cozart with the first and
He's my second.
second. Okay, got it. All right, it's done. It's done.
Who needs a third even?
Yeah. District 7. Do you have any,
We need to vote on.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. I apologize, board. District 7.
I don't have an appointment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gooch.
I do have a question, because I think a couple of mine have been on there for quite some time, and so I really do need to know on those 2. which ones when it's time for them to go. Thank you.
Hopefully, County Manager, we can, before our next small group meetings, maybe we can have a review of that and come to, hopefully give you a chance to review the material so that we can go over that and make some decisions. The next one is the Granville County Planning Board to make appointments. The terms of Howard Tyler, District 4, and Justin Milstead, District 7, expired. Mr. Milstead is resigned. So we have vacant position in District 4 and District 7. Do I have any nominations for District 4?
Mr. Chairman, I intended to have someone working on it, and I think, feel pretty confident I have a name for consideration at our next meeting.
Okay, and District 7?
I don't have anyone at this time. I'm working on it.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody that's waiting? Are they all good other than that? Okay. All right, so we'll move to the next one, and hopefully commissioners will be able to fill those at that time. The next is the Parks, Greenways, and Recreation. And we've got, we get the terms of District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, District 6, District 7, at large. And the names are on the document. And so forth. And are they all up for reappointment, Madam Clerk?
Yes, these right
here do
not wish to be reappointed.
So I want to, will you take this, Commissioner Karan, so that, because I have one in there, and we'll split it. Just start with District 1.
Yes.
District 1. For District 1.
Yes.
Do you have
it's
someone
okay,
for District
Mr.
1?
Yes, okay. Mr. Commissioner Jay asked me if I would recommend or move for the appointment of Reverend Reggie Royster from District 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
District 2, Mr. Hudson. They do not wish to be reappointed. Okay, so I need to go to the ones up here, I believe.
Either way, because we got to reappoint these, and then these have to be filled, and these have to be reappointed.
Okay,
So we can do either way.
all right. Mr. Nelson, D1, we've already come up with a name there, correct? And District 2, Mr. Hudson needs to, do we have, Mr. Williford's not here. District 4, Ms. Davis.
I should have that next, I'm sorry, I should have that next meeting as
Okay.
well, Mr.
Thank you for
Chairman.
bearing with me, Commissioners. And then let's move on to reappointments, if I'm correct. Ms. Williams for District 3,
And I would like to reappoint her, please.
and I'm just going to, Commissioner Karen, would you?
You want to do it as a slate?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the terms of District 3, Ms. Williams, Mr. Averett, District 5, and then I got me, Mr. Washburn on District 6, Mike McFadden, District 7, and Ms. Schaefer at large, as well as Mr. Rote at large, are willing to serve again and need reappointed. So 3, 5, 6, 7, and 2 at larges.
Motion to approve all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, and sorry for any confusion I may have caused. Okay, next is the selection of NCACC voting delegate for annual conference. I'll just read the background quickly. Board members are scheduled to participate in this 116th annual NCACC conference, August 24th to 26th, 2023, in Wake County. A voting delegate and alternate voting delegate needs to be selected to represent Granville County during the business session to vote on the items that are present before the membership. So do I have a nomination for a voting delegate and an alternate?
Mr. Chairman, for a voting delegate, Commissioner Hinman has a lot of experience now, so I'd recommend her for our voting delegate.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gooch, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
An alternate?
Who's going?
I'd like to appoint Commissioner Cozart as a
Oh,
delegate.
he can. He's on the ballot.
He's on the ballot.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I messed up.
I'll nominate Commissioner Karen. How's that? Is that okay with you, Commissioners?
Absolutely.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
You need to do the economic development.
Where's that at?
He added it, the economic.
Oh,
On the economic development front, we've got an application for Mr. Charles Noblin to fulfill the term of District 6 appointment.
Oh, awesome. So do you need a motion?
As a motion.
I'll make that motion. Or you made the motion, so I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the Expo Center AV upgrade update, is this under the is under Chris? Yep. Thank you, Chris. So the purpose of this is that we want to modernize our system here and have streaming and bring us in line with other governments within the county. So, Chris, if you take it from there.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Board. So originally back in April of this year, we issued our first RFP, or request for proposal, on the modernization of this facility, both audio and visual, and add abilities to have live streaming and recording video of each meeting. Due to some time constraints, and the original proposal asked for such a tight timetable and completion of the project, we had added an amendment to the project to extend it out to get better offers and better bids. In June of this year, the Information Technology Department issued a request for proposal to design and implement next generation audiovisual technology for the Granville County Expo Center. The scope of these key requirements included upgrading and modernizing high definition hardware connections for both visual and text here in this auditorium. Also upgrade the audio system to a digital audio system allowing for one-button presets for commissioner meetings and other events, and to install high-definition camera systems to support recording and or live streaming of public meetings. The request for proposal closed on July 31st, 2023, with multiple bids received. To ensure the selection of the proposals meet Granville County's needs now and into the future, the Information Technology Department has contacted references and scheduled site visits at previous installations of the bidders. Upon completion of this process, the Information Technology Department will provide a recommendation to the board for the proposal which best aligns with the county's needs. The recommendation is planned for the next Board of Commissioner meeting in September. It's presented as an informational item of where we are in the project, but I can answer any questions or comments.
We're just asking for an update, which he's provided us, board. What you've not had the opportunity to review some of the
I've not reviewed any of the locations. It's scheduled for the 14th, which is next Monday. I've reviewed the proposals in detail, but want to be able to visit the sites to actually demo the equipment being proposed.
County manager, have anything further to add?
Not really, just that I appreciate the additional due diligence. This is an important upgrade to this facility, and I think it's important that we make sure we select the best bidder. And so taking a few additional weeks to make sure we've done that due diligence, I think is a good idea.
And I just want to make sure that, we're just not looking at cost, but looking at the long-term solution for this technology, and that's not something we're going to have to switch out or have to come back and find another vendor because that vendor is no longer in business or anything of that nature. So any other comments from our board? If not, we'll take no action on that tonight, but thank you for your presentation and thank you for bringing up to speed on FirstNet.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board.
Next item is planning matters update and proposed changes to the UDO. Is Caitlin Hart? Or is this you, Mr. Baker? I'll reserve comment, Caitlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Board members, this is the purpose of this item is to update commissioners
On a possible change to our UDO and to answer any questions you may have, the Granville County Planning Board has directed planning staff to craft an amendment to the Land Development Code that would increase the minimum lot size in rural cluster subdivisions to 40,000 square feet, require a minimum 85 feet of road frontage per lot, and to change the setbacks for the proposed cluster subdivisions. Prior to 2007, the minimum lot size for conventional subdivisions was 40,000 square feet, which were capable of facilitating on-site wells and septic systems. Cluster subdivisions that have been approved in recent years have generally had lots as low as 30,000 square feet, which has led to some of the subdivisions creating community well systems. These well systems may create some challenges and also have some benefits, but staff believe that limiting construction of additional community well systems for the time being and observing the ones under construction may improve our understanding of those costs and benefits. It is believed that the 40,000 square foot minimum lot minimum will reduce the need for community well systems while preserving the positive development impacts of cluster/conservation subdivisions, such as open space preservation, water quality improvement in the Falls Lake watershed, sensitive land preservation, beyond anything to do with stormwater, such as floodplains, wetlands, and farmland preservation. It should be noted, however, that developers may still request community well system permits from the state, regardless of what local size limitations exist. You will see attachments or illustrations from our comprehensive land use plan of the Creedmoor and Wilton East concept that were identified during the comprehensive planning process. It is anticipated that the amendment will go to the planning board next week. Then they would conceivably ask the planning director to sign an amendment. It would then go to them for a public hearing in September, and it would likely come to y'all in October. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Board, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
How many community well systems have been approved? Well, the subdivisions that would use community wells that have been identified during the preliminary plat process, 3, no more than 4. At what point are they in the process? Have they already been approved? The preliminary plats have been approved. Those that are in the Falls Lake watershed are in the process of receiving stormwater plan approval. It is likely that some of them may start being graded, put on the land within the next 6 to 9 months. Do you know at what point they are in the permitting process with the state for community well? I do not, no, sir. Not at this point, I do not, because they've not come for final plat approval. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So with this change, do you still anticipate the cluster/conservation subdivisions being brought forward, or do you think that this will end that practice?
I think so, Commissioner. I mean, I've looked at preliminary or some subdivisions that have already been recorded that were approved in 2020, 2021. One is Ironwood Phase 3. Most of their lots are 40,000 square foot. It was done as a cluster. There's another that does not have a community well, that they did have about 2 or 3 lots that were 30,000, but they were not large subdivisions. I do think that it would continue. The benefit, again, of the cluster conservation subdivision is open space preservation. The commissioners have rightly approved amendments that 30% of a tract is left for open space. And so there are a number of benefits to a conservation cluster subdivision.
I agree. You know, it's ironic that in this month's county quarterly from the NCACC, which is our state organization, of course, you know, we hear about it on the news all the time, but creating access for successful, affordable home ownership. You know, Buncombe County invested $40 million through a bond to solve their shortage in housing and affordability. Orange County did a bond in 2016 that set the bar pretty quick at $5 million. But the investments that are being made by our county cohorts to try and stave off some of the unaffordability of homes and the price skyrocketing, I know that when we do our revaluation, that's going to cause a lot of people, including myself, a bunch of heartburn. But you know, there's one thing as we hear about with the growth in population and urban sprawl and all the other things, just would hate to get away from a conservation subdivision or a cluster subdivision.
I mean, the county has worked to implement the comprehensive land use plan that was adopted in late 2018. And that many of those items, they were identified through a very comprehensive public outreach, have been accomplished. There are open space standards. There's buffer standards along the state roads. So, but this would be consistent with the comprehensive plan and preserve the positive benefits of a cluster conservation subdivision.
Mr. Baker, does your unit, the county, regulate community wells?
The planning department does not, no, sir.
Who does?
The state and with assistance from the county health department at the beginning.
And the county health department falls under DHHS, correct? Mr. County Manager?
That's correct.
That's correct. And so the county has no if I'm correct, the county has no regulatory authority over community wells. Is that to your knowledge?
That's my understanding.
And so any changes, should a developer wish to place a community well in Granville County, despite what we do with the land use ordinance, if they decided that it would, okay, is there anything we can do as a body to stop it, to stop community wells from coming in? In other words, the developers that came in 2021 were already in the food chain, and our ordinances for the cluster subdivision was in place. So once you enter the conveyor belt of permitting, that is what you fall under, correct?
Yes, sir.
So since that time, we've created a more open space text amendment and a traffic impact analysis text amendment. And now you're proposing an additional text amendment to increase the size of the lots that would hopefully mitigate or potentially minimize someone from wanting to place a community well into one of the communities.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
But the reality of it is that unless we have a legislative fix, not a Granville County fix, we can't stop that, can we?
To my knowledge, we cannot.
Mr. Wren?
My knowledge, we can't.
So it's going to require, if there's a concern there and a documented concern and some means to concern, then we would have to find the means to be able to work with our legislators on something of that nature and not within the county. And so we're limited in that regard. Am I correct?
Correct. We can only do what the state allows us to do.
Okay.
Would a petition help? I'm asking. I mean, we're being petitioned apparently, and it's garnering support. And two of the items are banning community wells and imposing additional restrictions on well interference. I mean, we're studying this. I mean, obviously people are not happy that we didn't have an answer in 10 days. But we're looking at this, and obviously by evidence of what Mr. Baker is reporting here tonight. The wheels are turning, slowly, but they're turning.
Correct.
Okay.
County manager, any comment in regards to the county's activity on any of these matters? We do understand the concern of the citizens who live in these areas. Obviously, we do not want to not take appropriate steps to deal with it. But I've not yet been identified a life safety issue, as is also called for a land use moratorium. And Mr. Wren, if I am correct, in order to have a land use moratorium, you would have to have a remedy and you would have to have a public safety or public health situation. And to your knowledge, Mr. Baker, do we in fact have those in the county?
My understanding was it'd have to be a present articulable public health situation.
Are you aware of any of those in the county?
You have to identify the time period to fix any identifiable problem. It can't be for, some extended period of time, indefinite. And I'm not aware of some emergency situation at this point.
Okay, and you've not been contacted by DEQ or the Public Health Department or Mr. Hendrick or anyone to further identify any groundwater, immediate issues with any groundwater?
No one has contacted me about that, no.
All right. I don't think, any other commissioners have any questions? It doesn't recommend any action. I do think the county manager that we have more work to do. Mr. Baker, commend you for taking the steps you're taking that you believe that may better our situation until we have more affirmative information. And I know that the county manager, if you could, just basically tell us what your commitment is to work on those matters.
So the first response I would have is to just confirm with Mr. Baker. I know that the Development Review Committee has also reviewed these recommendations. Would you anticipate these coming back to the board for actual approval when?
I would anticipate this as a text amendment, the earliest in October, before the county commissioners.
Okay. And I would just point out that county work on a variety of the other proposed sort of solutions or ideas for improving our understanding of the groundwater situation. Conversations on those topics have continued pretty regularly since they were, first brought to our attention, and continue to be planned out into the future as well.
Okay. Mr. Baker, I got one other question to ask you unrelated to that situation. Sure. As you are aware, and you have heard, and you have read, and as I have, and I've discussed with you, that there was an incident that occurred in Durham County in which explosive blasting agents were used, and it is apparently believed to have disrupted some wells in bedrock. Based on that, a request was made that you review, through the county manager, that you review whether or not we have any present ordinances to legislate that locally in regards to what we can or can't do in regards to authorizing the use of blasting agents in development and so forth. Have you begun to work on that with the fire marshal?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I have. And my understanding of the question was restrict the use of explosives for the purpose of putting in infrastructure in a subdivision. And yes, started the process through the planning listserv of the School of Government. Another county identified that it was that their fire marshal's office works or regulates permits the use of explosives. Have found that the ATF and the fire marshal's office have to permit the use of explosives for any purpose. And our fire marshal's office are working on investigating what other fire marshals in the state are doing.
And then potentially come to some type of conclusion, consensus, and working with the county attorney to see what we can or can't do in regards to creating an ordinance. But the matter is under review.
Yes, it is.
We've done a preliminary review of it, and initially, we think it's positive that you can regulate it if that's what the board chose to do, but we haven't come to an absolute firm conclusion yet.
Okay. Any of the commissioners got any other comments? Sorry to belabor this, but I think it's important we had people stay around, and I want to make sure they hear this. I will tell you that this board is committed to working on this and continue to commit to get answers and do what we can. What we don't want to do is make judgments in which will affect people's value of land and property. And we need to be very careful about how we proceed to do that. And Mr. Baker, I think you are well aware of that, the processes that we use. We want to make sure that does not minimize or diminish the value of someone's property. At the same time, we want to keep in mind that what we do also ensures that we're operating in a way that adequately serves the county residents with the resources that we have available. But in my earlier comments, I want to reiterate, limited government and then active government are two very powerful things. And so typically infrastructure begins in municipal areas and branches outward. Am I correct? And so we hope to develop and continue to develop our ordinance to sustain that, and hopefully we can do that. But we just want to make sure that residents understand that when you move further away from municipalities and you move further off the grid, that there's a level of responsibility that comes with that does not encumber the county to take on that cost to do so because of limited response in government that you are made a decision to live where you live. And so, Mr. Karan, do you have anything to add with that?
I just, we're down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I mean, I appreciate the comprehensive land and use plan update. I know that we went through quite an exhaustive process in 18 when we put it together, and it is necessary to tweak those from time to time. It's hard to impress upon folks how many times you say that, the General Assembly grants counties and municipalities the powers to do what they do. And it also grants other commissions, like the Environmental Management Commission, but that commission is not an interchangeable. It doesn't mean county commission. And if the general statutes 8788 and 8783, which is the North Carolina Well Construction Act, directly talk about the health department, the DHHS, and the Environmental Management Commission as the entities that regulate wells. And then people want to yell at us and have conversations about, if you don't do what I want you to do because I'm your constituent, and I'm not going to vote for you, that's fine and dandy. But what they don't understand is when you get a group of 100 people together, that there might be another 1,000 people who are in opposition. And if the 100 people are screaming, you have to listen to us because we're the people who put you there. But what they don't take a second to think about is those unconnected, unintended consequences. Like if, for instance, by the petition, we were to declare a public health emergency, what would be the unintended consequence if someone wanted to sell their house? I would believe that they would have to have a real estate disclosure saying that their house was in peril and in jeopardy of a failing system. And that would probably make that property less valuable, I would think. If you're going to be putting on the notice of sale that I believe as the seller of this home that the well is about to fail in an imminent demise, I would think that would lead to an issue. But we're off the path, and I apologize for rambling. So thank you, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Baker, for your expertise and your compassionate, Mr. Wren. Thank you. And we just want to make sure the public understands that we're not dismissive of any of the concerns. We are looking into them and doing what we can, and the county manager's been tasked with that and continues to be tasked with that. And so we'll do the very best that we can. I'd like to move on now to the next topic unless any other commissioners have any comments. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. The next one is item 23. Is that under manager's report? Would you like to take that, please? Sorry.
You were working your way very efficiently through the county manager's report, which I appreciate.
Thank you. I don't need a promotion.
So this item is the culmination and also a culmination of some discussions and the beginning of some other ones. As noted in the agenda item, the Board of Education and the county commissioners, I think, have long agreed that they desire to have an SRO in every Granville County public school. And I've also observed that the funding has not been there to make that a reality. We're aware that some state funding is potentially available to help us fill that gap. And it has been observed that a joint resolution by the two boards stating that mutual goal could be an effective tool for helping to get some of that outside funding to help us fill that gap. I think it's a sign of our healthy deliberative process here at the county that that we have at least one school board member here who's been here for a couple of hours, who came here after they approved the MOU at their meeting earlier this evening. And so Dr. Winborn did text me that they had approved the MOU. This is a pretty straightforward MOU. It does. There are some additional legal agreements that we would need to approve that I think we have had an MOU in place covering these SROs. I think it's been recognized by the sheriff's office, the county, and the school system that that needs to be updated. But we didn't want that lengthier process to get in the way of our having this jointly adopted simple MOU stating our principled and mutual desire to have an SRO in each of the schools. And so this has been drafted by the school board's attorney, Ms. Dubison. Grateful to her for drafting it. We had some input into it and changed a few things, and that was still mutually agreeable to everybody. And so that MOU is before the commissioners tonight, and happy to answer any questions I can.
Commissioners, what we're hopeful of is that through an MOU such as this, under the Safe Schools Act, that we will be able to obtain the funding along with other grants available to the Justice Department to be able to place an SRO at every school, and the opportunity to work with local jurisdictions along with the Sheriff's Department to place the right SRO at the right school. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the memorandum MOU that we find in our agenda packet.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gooch. Thank you, Commissioner Cozart. I forgot discussion. Anyone have anything else they'd like to say?
This can't come soon enough.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And thank you, school board and school administration for helping us with that. County manager report. We just flew through that, didn't we?
I've got one other item
Okay.
that I just wanted to bring to your attention. Today, county staff and staff from the Granville Vance Public Health Department and staff from the city of Oxford all met with representatives from CertainTeed, company which had a draft air quality permit that they had filed with DEQ for the new plant that they're building out off Industrial Drive, for which the county received some, we both gave and received incentives for that project late last fall. But this is a new plant that does have the potential to put off some hazardous compounds. And so we asked DEQ to extend the public comment period, which is still open, I think, until about the middle of the month, till the 17th or 18th. And we also sat down with them for about an hour and a half today and asked all kinds of questions about the proposed permit, asked questions of the DEQ staff who were there, who are actually legally responsible for the permit and all the permit requirements. And it was a very productive meeting. I learned a lot personally about the positive history that CertainTeed has both with DEQ in meeting their statutory obligations to the state, but also their historical practices, meeting with, for example, our emergency management folks and City of Oxford Fire Department to make sure that emergency planning is in place, because these are factories that do deal with, have deal with substantial quantities of, variety of different kinds of chemicals and other industrial substances. And so it's a good idea that for us to, do our due diligence on this kind of proposed permit. And I just want to bring that to your attention and to the public's attention.
Thank you, County Manager. I know that the board asked you to go deep into that to make sure that we weren't missing anything. So we thank you for your due diligence on that, and we will trust that you will see that through and continue with that. Is there anything else, County Manager?
No, sir.
Thank you, County Manager, and thank you for the good job you're doing for the county. I think now is Mr. Wren's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing that I have on my report is the Granville Health Systems purchase of 101B Professional Park Drive. I would be happy to present this, but Adam McConnell, interim CEO, has sat here the whole meeting. I don't know if he wants to get any time in the limelight or not. Okay. So this is a purchase of the downstairs unit of 101 Professional Park Drive. We bought last year the upstairs unit. It is a condominium, and so by buying this, we'll be able to combine the two units and could choose to do away with condominium structure, which has a value in its own, in my opinion. The purchase price for the property is $925,000 to be paid all with internally generated Granville Health System funds. The health system's not asking the county for any financial support. However, all real property owned by the health system is titled in the name of the county. So the health system's simply asking that the county agree to accept and hold title to the real property. And the unit is 5,466 square feet. And it's currently owned by an LLC known as Mott's Ridge LLC of Raleigh. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Board, do you have any questions? County Manager, what's your recommended motion? County Attorney, what's your recommended motion?
It would be recommend to approve holding title to 101B Professional Park Drive. I note that the health system has already approved the acquisition subject to this board's approval.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve purchase.
Commissioner Gooch, second?
Second motion, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Cozart, any other further discussion?
4-star hospital under CMS guidelines. Overall satisfaction, outstanding work.
And I'd like to add that we do have all our new ambulances in now. Is that correct? Granville County purchased 3 ambulance units to that process, so thank you. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else, County Attorney?
I do have one matter for economic development, closed session privilege pursuant to 143-318.1184, I believe.
Okay, we will take that on as soon as we finish this meeting here. Now we'll move on to, unless County Manager, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Board members make comments at this time. Commissioner Jimmy Gooch.
No comment.
I didn't think. Commissioner Sue Hinman.
Yes, I was able to go to the NACO conference in Austin and got to meet a lot of other county commissioners all across the country and learn how they're dealing with some of the things that we're now dealing with ourselves. And it's always a very interesting time. So that was very important to me. I also went to the DSS conference in Hickory last week. Quite frankly, I've learned that we're getting much, much closer to this Medicaid program that the state is pushing on us. And I went to one of the DSS workers' class, and quite frankly, I think they were talking Greek and Spanish and German all at the same time. Because I got no idea what they were talking about with all the acronyms. There was a whole half a page of acronyms I was writing down. And then they told us that this could all change in a matter of minutes. And, you know, they'll tell you one way to do it, and then they turn around in the next minute and tell you another way to do it. How our workers are going to do this, I have no idea. And especially since we don't have a full board on board to take care of this. So I'm really quite concerned about this expansion that's getting ready to happen. So be prepared.
And there'll be a significant impact on Child Protective Services and VIA, and we will be getting, go ahead.
Just on that topic, I have asked Ms. Mustin-Lyles to work with her staff and prepare a memo about what the department is doing to prepare for this new responsibility. I haven't received that yet, but we'll be working with them to make sure that they have plans and that I have a chance to review those.
Like I said, I was with those young ladies, and they're awesome, because as soon as I'd say, what, they spout it out to me real quick, and, but when the state told us that they could tell you something right now, and then change it within minutes, how these people are going to keep up with this, I have no idea. I mean, I couldn't even keep up with the acronyms.
It's going to be a challenge. Anything else, Commissioner Hinman?
No, that's all I have, thank you. And I'll be glad to vote at the next meeting.
Dr. Cozart.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I won't elaborate, but I do share Commissioner Hinman's concerns with the impact on staffing there at DSS. I just think it's going to be pretty tremendous. Commissioner Jay asked me if I would bring to the board a recommendation that we approve the purchase of a sign. The Toler Oak Hill community is going through a celebration of 200 years, and they wanted to, as a part of that celebration, have a sign placed, and I can't remember exactly where, but he wanted me to do it tonight so they could get on with the business of getting it hopefully purchased, and we even have perhaps another vendor that consider I'll share that with him. But I would say, he said $500 some dollars, so I would say amount not to exceed $600 if the board is willing to approve purchase of this.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Hinman, have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gooch, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that all, Dr. Cozart?
Just congratulations again, Commissioner Karan, hit the nail on the head. Going from 2 to 4-star CMS rating doesn't happen by chance, and just want to commend Ms. McConnell and all the staff at the hospital for their work. Just gives people I think even more confidence in the work we do at our hospital, and surely makes us proud.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Karan.
So, Jason, Rivas, real quick on the Fire Commission, when do they meet?
Their quarterly meetings.
Oh.
What about
Fire Commission tomorrow night. So what's their, I'm sorry, you threw me off and I'm like, wait a minute, I have a quarterly meeting. Okay, so you're the second Tuesday of the month?
This is a special call meeting.
Okay.
The last meeting we had 2 weeks ago was a regular quarterly meeting, because they wanted to do another meeting tomorrow night.
Okay. So my only point, since we've ripped through most of what petition-wise that's out there, is equitable fire tax distribution for Brassfield. The Fire Commission that we had set up through that process, I think we started it in 2019 and wound up last year was when we actually put in place the new
1 year
taxing district, 1 year. And when we set it up, there was basically 5 parameters that we were looking at that Fire Commission had kind of come up with how to set. One of them was like amount of rooftops, population served, call volume, and different parameters. We've been working on contracts. I don't think we've got off of that. So if citizens have got an interest in what's going on with the volunteer fire departments and how we are going to be having a sustainable long-term funding source for them, the Fire Commission is where you want to be. That is the recommending board, and they would love to have some citizen input. The only thing they hear right now is from a very select microcosm of individuals, and we put citizens on that board on purpose so that we can have citizenry input within what our fire service is going to become. And the citizens that are on there could absolutely use other citizens who are interested in making sure that they've got long-term economic viability of their volunteer fire departments. That's where they should go, to those meetings. And we'll make sure that we update that if we can on our website as to how to become involved as a citizen. And obviously through this board is one mechanism, but the Fire Commission is where those recommendations start. And if the that body is not recommending funding that's commensurate with those that are paying it and having the local tax that's generated by that fund stay in the local department, then the citizens in that locally served fire department should be mad as hell and screaming as best they can. So that's all I have to say about that. If you feel your fire department's not getting an equitable share of the fire tax, you need to go to the fire commission and say so.
Thank you, Commissioner Karan. I'll follow up with that. The Fire Commission, if I'm correct, has been in place for just a year. I think it was appointed last July, I believe. And I think that their first meeting was soon thereafter. In their first year, they focused on contracts, budgets, operational budgets, and they also focused on the commission decided that they wanted to place a firefighter on every fire truck in the county volunteer departments. So when we went through the $1.8 million that was set aside for, that's what was taken up for 1.87, something like that, I believe. That exhausted those fundings. Pretty much exhausted that, if I'm correct, Mr. Rivas. It pretty much exhausted those fundings because $1.2 million of that money all went to operational funding to fund the 12 volunteer fire departments and the 2 full-time departments. So now they're in the phase where they'll begin to look at those other things, including equitable funding. This board is, based on the consultant's recommendations, is a proponent of equitable funding. That is essential, that equitable funding is provided. And we will be working with the Fire Commission as they proceed to review how they are going to distribute the funding that's going to come through the budget and make the budget for next year. So they're going through the current budget. We're just now getting their operational budgets, and we're just now getting their contract signed. It was, again, 14 departments trying to get all the contracts signed and massaged the way that everyone is amenable to everyone. So we are working on that. So no disrespect to the petition, but the reality of it is that the Fire Commission has not taken on that because there wasn't funding to take on that matter. It wasn't there. But we hope next year there'll be ample funding to take on that and include everyone on a fire truck. But I want to make it very clear. The amount of operational funding has gone up quite a bit. They received their operational funding money between $83,000 and $85,000. It could be off a few thousand here or there. In addition, to be able to place someone in every fire truck, every volunteer fire department provided $20,000 that they must reimburse. Add to that, again, there's insurance and compensation, workman's comp, and a stipend for the retirement. In addition, if you look at the radios and all that's been applied, I mean, many of our volunteer fire departments, as they sit right now, where they would have gotten prior to the fire tax $83,000 or well over $100,000, as we are now. And so we hope to do even better. And again, the fire tax is only obtained through the unincorporated areas of the county. It doesn't come from other places other than that. So just want to make sure that everyone understands. And again, I will reiterate what Commissioner Karan's saying, is that Creedmoor Volunteer Fire Department, Braswell Volunteer Fire Department, Providence Volunteer Fire Department, I'm hoping not, STEM Fire Department, those are very active fire departments, very active. And so we hope that the Fire Commission brings those recommendations that look toward equitable funding. And I know as the commissioner that sits on that board, we try to mention it as often as we can, but we haven't got to that equation yet. When we get to that equation, I'm hoping that we'll get that resolved from the Fire Commission. And that's all I have to say tonight. I need a motion. Thank you all for attending tonight. I need a motion from the board to dismiss and go into adjourn and go into closed session.
I'll make that motion if we can have a 5-minute bio break.
Ms. Hinman, second?
Second.
Commissioner Karan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5 minutes.